All right, welcome everyone to the Pitkin County Board of County Commissioners work session on Thursday, November 6th. We moved our meeting from election day to today this week, so thanks for everyone's flexibility. And apologies for us running over a little bit. We had a special meeting executive session with a number of very important topics to discuss, and so sorry we're a few minutes late, but thank you. I will turn it over to Ryan Mahoney, our Deputy County Manager, to present.
Do you want me to take it?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I'm like,
You got this one.
go around the horn. There
Thank
go.
you, Commissioners. Diane Jackson, Airport Director, and I am joined by Ryan Mahoney, our Deputy County Manager, as well as Brian and Jason, both with Recondo, our financial consultants that I'm sure everyone is very familiar with for the airport. So I'm going to kind of let Brian and Jason take the presentation away after a quick intro here that we revisit every year our annual rates and charges as part of the budget process for the airport. That's done in close coordination with us, the finance team, as well as county staff developing the budget. So Brian, if you want to take it away with your presentation on methodology and how we came up with two scenarios to discuss with the board today, that'd be great.
Sounds great. Thank you, Diane. Good afternoon, everyone, commissioners. As Diane indicated, I'm Brian Elliott. I'm Vice President with Recondo and Associates. I'm joined by Jason Apt, who is a director with our firm, and we're pleased to be here this afternoon to walk through which is becoming an annual event, and that is the presentation of the calculation of airline rates and charges and general aviation rates and charges for the airport for fiscal year now beginning January 1, 2026. A little bit of what we will be covering today. Number one, the key assumptions that feed into the calculated rates. Those also include inputs to the rates and how the outputs are produced, and those are the calculations. So I'll be covering the first two items, the assumptions and inputs, and Jason Apt will walk you through the actual calculations. This is, again, very informal, so if you have questions, please interrupt me, and we'll be happy to field questions as needed.
We'll give the tough questions to you and we can handle the rest.
And Diane can handle all of them as well, so I'm just here speaking. So as presented last year, the airport is in very much the same type of situation this year, this ensuing fiscal year, as it is this current fiscal year, in that it has a very high but inordinate runway maintenance project that it needs to complete. In the current fiscal year, it was $8.8 million. In the upcoming fiscal year, it's estimated to be about $6.5 million. So that is a big influencer, if you will, in terms of guiding the calculations of rates and charges, both current fiscal year and then also next fiscal year as well. So just keep that in mind. That situation has not gone away. And just like last year, there's no federal funding to support this work. Yes.
A quick question. Are these the non-refundable charges just to maintain the runway that FAA will
Correct,
not?
that he's talking about.
The FAA
rate-
will not
the-
reimburse us?
Correct.
Right, okay. I thought it was 7 and something, but it's 8 and then,
6.
Last year and this year
okay,
will
so it's
be
about
estimated
14.
6.8.
we'll be in at 14 before we're done with that. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So a little bit of background. The county has historically established rates and charges both for the airlines and the general aviation landing fee based on a compensatory rate setting methodology. Compensatory rate setting methodologies are just that. The rates are calculated to compensate the county for the case of the airlines and then general aviation's use of the airfield. And then on the terminal side, the airlines' use of the terminal building and the space that they occupy. The operating expenses and revenues that drive the calculations of the FY26 rates and charges, just as in previous years, are based on the budget numbers that I believe you have seen for the airport for fiscal year 26. So that data is all in alignment with the calculations that we've produced. One of the distinct starting points for the calculations of rates and charges is the development of both direct and indirect cost centers. So there are established and have been established in the airport fund direct cost centers, which are typically those areas of the airfield that generate revenue, and those are the direct cost centers. Indirect cost centers do not necessarily generate revenue. But the issue is it's very much a cost accounting calculation in the sense that those indirect costs are then spread across those direct cost centers to build up the total requirement for the airfield and the terminal. Historically, the county, the airport has allocated those indirect costs one of two ways. Administration is an indirect cost center. So those costs in the administration indirect cost center are spread among the direct cost centers based on the percent split of personnel costs to the direct cost centers. So it's a percentage breakdown of those admin indirect costs overlaid to the direct cost centers. We'll get into the ARF indirect cost center in a bit, but that's a little different. So what occurs every fall is airport staff bring to you their budget, you look at it, you act on it, and then we follow on with these calculated rates and charges. Typically in December of each year, the board adopts the calculated rates or their adopted rates for the ensuing fiscal year, and those rates become effective January 1 of the calendar year because you're on a calendar year, fiscal year basis. Some of the assumptions for FY26, first, activity. So in the development of your calculated rates and charges, passengers and aircraft landed weight are key variables that are used to establish those rates. So for flight activity, what we did was look at your actual data through August of 2025. And then we also examined published schedules that the airlines have already loaded in their computer systems, and we've extrapolated those on out into 2026. And that helps inform the landed weight for the airlines for the ensuing fiscal year. Now, we do temper that a little bit by about 93%, so it's a margin of about 7% that's taken off of there because obviously not all flights are completed. And so either because of weather or other issues, they don't happen. So we do back that down a little bit. For estimated actual 2025 passengers, again, we looked through the end of September at the actual numbers, and we projected for the last quarter of this year to sum that up for an estimated total for 25. And then for 26, we increased that by 1%, again, in line with the airport layout plan forecasts that were approved by the board last year. Airline landed weight for fiscal year 26 is a bit different than in the past. Historically, your airport over the past several years has been served exclusively by the airlines with the CRJ 700 aircraft. This past year, United began to introduce into the market the E175. So you can see that the E175 is just a little bit heavier, if you will, in terms of landed weight than the CRJ 700. For 26, we're assuming that American will retain all of its flights with the CRJ 700. Delta and United will operate 100% of their aircraft with, I don't know, I'm getting that missed, with the Embraer 175. GA landed weight, again, we looked at actual data through August and we did a projection through December based on historical actuals. And for 26, we assumed that landed weight would increase by just under 1% from estimated 2025. Revenues and expenses, again, both operating revenues and non-airline revenues are based on the proposed FY26 budget that was submitted in September 2025. Again, the operating expenses include the $6.8 million for the runway pavement maintenance project to be paid exclusively with airport funds, no grant funding. Indirect expenses. Several years ago, the board decided to split those aircraft rescue and firefighting expenses 60% to the airlines, 40% to general aviation. So when I was mentioning those indirect cost centers earlier, the ARF expenses, which is again is another indirect expense, is allocated differently than the others. And just as a note, general aviation revenue is budgeted to total approximately $26.6 million for fiscal year '26. On the capital side, the budget is reflecting about a $76.4 million spend with federal grants, AIP, AIG. That will also include some passenger facility charge revenues, customer facility charge revenues, and airport funds. Again, primarily that $76 million is related to the design services, both in the terminal and the airfield for the modernization project. And my computer just shut down.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
this one doesn't really work.
No.
Why?
You can use this one too.
Timing is everything in life, right?
Didn't give you any notice, huh? That thing just, woo!
And that ends my presentation. Thank you. Jason will take it over.
Cliffhanger, right?
Good job.
Bear with me 1 minute while my
Yeah,
computer
no
reboots.
problem.
I'm sorry.
All good.
Any questions up to this point? Is this all? This is all coming back to most everyone based on
straightforward.
previous
Thank you.
year's discussions. All right, let's try
I'm
this.
sorry, remind me again, so 60-40 for ARF, and then what's the breakdown for the other,
The other cost centers?
yeah.
So like admin is based on the direct cost center allocation. So in other words, if terminal direct costs are 55% and 45% to airfield, then the admin cost would be split that way too.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
I do have a question.
Patty?
You mentioned AIG grants,
Federal grants.
and then you said AIP and AIG.
Yes. So several years ago, during COVID, there was separate legislation passed at the federal level that established for 5 years a new, quote unquote, kind of new grant program for airports. And it's again entitlement and discretionary. And so in addition to your traditional AIP, you're able to secure funding through this new program, but it sunsets.
Is that the one that
This year.
says that that's the terminal opportunity?
That's the terminal is the.
I just want to clarify. I thought, is there another grant program out there? I
No,
don't know that.
I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
didn't mean to
No.
tease. I didn't mean to tease that. I'm
no,
sorry.
you were. I'm like, I was getting so excited, but yeah, okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that.
We're hoping where some of those sunset. There's
working
new
on it.
programs
I'm
to
working on
begin.
Okay, back. Thank you. Sorry about that. Maybe that's a sign that I need to move quicker. So the inputs and how does this translate to the budget? So this is a snapshot of the activity. We described that earlier about the 1% increase in total employing passengers and also the landed weight. So the landed weight between the new E-175s in the market as well as the new service that you're getting, like American service from Charlotte, you can see is driving that signatory airline landed weight up from about 510,000 to 568,000 for budget year 2026. The GA is that 0.8% increase landed weight year over year. So again, that annual growth in the landed weight is primarily attributable to upgauging of aircraft and additional service in the market. Just a quick snapshot comparison of budgeted operating and maintenance expenses, between 25 and 26. In fiscal year 25, the adopted budget was right around 29 million. For 26, it is around 28.3 million. And again, the big slice of those charts is the airfield, the green central part there. You can see the 18 million last year, 16 this year. The big component of that is the airfield maintenance. And again, the capital program, 49.6 million for the airfield, design services, some equipment purchases that are being made. Terminal is primarily the design services in the terminal, and other would be design services for, be it parking, the new loop road or entranceway into the airport, et cetera. So again, heavy focus in 26 on design services. When we look at non-airline revenues, again, you can see the general aviation revenues last year, or this current fiscal year, 22.6 million compared to 26.6 in budget year 26. I call out parking is around just under 1.1 million in both years, fairly flat. And the rental car revenue, because you're under a new contract, you can see some increases there over budget year 25. I'll turn to Jason.
All right.
Let me just pause and see if there's any questions about any of that so far.
Good, thanks.
Just to summarize, once again, rental car and parking come up to about 5 million a year.
Very, very close to 5 million. Yes, sir.
Okay, so now we're going to just step through the actual calculations for both the terminal and the landing fee. So if we work from the top, you see we're showing both the budget 25 and the budget 26. So what we really have to do is establish a requirement. So for both the airfield and the terminal, there's what's called a requirement, and that requirement is made up of, you can see the list, O&M expenses, no debt service in this case at this time, amortization, small capital projects. So all of those amounts that are allocated to either the terminal or the airfield are then kind of loaded into what's called the requirement. And then your rates are basically set against that requirement. And so if we see the total requirement for fiscal 26 at 6.5 million in the terminal, so that's made up of all those direct and indirect expenses that are allocated to the terminal. Amortization, so these are projects that were completed either last year or would be projected to be completed this year or in previous years that used your local funds, your cash basically, and that gets amortized on a longer schedule depending on the type of project that it is or equipment. And then that annual amortization then is allocated and loaded into the requirement. That requirement is then divided by the usable space of the terminal. No changes for this budget year. And then the resulting, there's a resulting rate, and so $132.09 per square foot for the interior space for the terminal this year. So up about 2% from budget 25, which would be the current rates that you're assessing to the airlines right now. So there's an interior space, exterior space, and then there is also a seasonal factor for those as well. And so what we do then is then we use those rates to come up with, what you would get from revenue from the airlines, based on what they're actually leasing in the terminal. And that's that bottom line number, 3.2 million, the projection for fiscal year 2026. Any questions on the terminal rent?
Jeffrey.
Really minor, Jason,
Yeah.
but when we erect a bunch of tents outside to accommodate, there's no pass-through? Doesn't
haven't,
factor into
no.
charges?
Because that's us.
But square footage we're not accounting for, is that?
We are
Yeah.
not.
My point is, it's leasable square footage that we're adding in order to accommodate high season, but we're not monetizing. That was my question. It's minor, but
We have not.
thank you. It's minor.
Good catch. Other,
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
no, I just wanted to see if there were other, so I guess so when I think of this like amortization piece of it, like when we do a roof repair in 1 year, we're reclaiming the cost for that roof repair proportionally over
The life
whatever
of the, the life
period
of
of
the
time.
asset.
Yeah.
Basically, over the life of the asset,
Okay.
and there's a percentage added to
Yeah.
that. So it's like
Yeah.
you're getting 100% of the, and say the asset was completed in 2025, so you're getting 100% back of that plus 3% on top of that. So you're getting your money back, trying to keep the money current too, if you will.
I guess I'm wondering how this, I'm curious as to what this looks like in 5 years when we have a new terminal. How does that all,
Well,
Could be bigger
is that,
numbers.
yeah, is that number gonna be
No, you
huge
wouldn't.
and
You would
we-
not you would not amortize those costs because you're basically looking at debt service at that point in time. So you've financed those improvements with debt, And so that where you see the 0 today in that second row, if you extrapolate this on out, post-construction of
it'll
your
show up.
terminal, that
Okay.
cell would be populated with the allocated debt service to that, and it will become part of the requirement. You would continue to obviously amortize other equipment, so forth, that you would need for the terminal building as you're going forward, but the debt service would be loaded in as part of the requirement.
This is just helpful because when, like, people ask us, how is this gonna affect the price of a plane ticket? You know, like, that's a place where we'll be able to very clearly see from past years to future years where that shows up and how that equates into that rates number. And I know there's a number of other decisions that go into how we decide these, but that's helpful. Thank you.
And then just a technicality on the amortization, there is a threshold, I think it's 75,000.
Okay.
So if you have a smaller project, you would just expense it in that year, you wouldn't amortize it. So that's what that
makes
small
sense.
capital projects is. We just weren't projecting any for fiscal '26. But if there are some, $10,000 for new computers, something like that, that's
Some
where that would
Band-Aid
fall.
or another, yeah.
But the roof repairs are a very real thing for
Oh,
us.
yeah, no, I know.
They
I
are.
know. Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so next up is the landing fee. Wanted to start this off by just kind of recapping this conversation just about a year ago. And Brian kind of alluded to it. The $8.8 million for the runway repair maintenance project last year. At the time, there were a number of scenarios that the board had us look at for what to do with basically that amount, that money. In a typical scenario, that kind of project would be a capital project, right? And so maybe you get some grants for it to the extent you use your own county funds. That could be amortized, just like we saw earlier on the amortization, and recovered over time through rates and charges in that way. In this case, as we know, there's no federal involvement, no grants towards the project last year or this upcoming year. And so what to do with that amount, how to recover it, or how to basically pay it and then recover it to some extent. So we looked at 4 scenarios last year, ranging from basically do nothing. In other words, that $8.8 million, if it's an expense, it goes as an expense to the airfield in that 1 year. And so that would obviously, as requirement divided by landed weight, that's going to really escalate that landing fee. And then we also looked at kind of the other extreme of that, would be scenario 2, which was ultimately selected, which was basically use the county's fund balance to cover that $8.8 million, and then offer some additional discretionary money to keep the rates as they were in fiscal 2024. So that's what was done last year. Looking at this year, we looked at a couple scenarios. Again, so the project cost we're looking at for this year is $6.8 million. Again, so 2 scenarios. In the first scenario, basically kind of the do nothing from the county perspective. It's that full $6.8 million as an airfield expense gets loaded into the landing fee, and the airlines pay that in 1 year through rates and charges, and then no discretionary credit. In scenario 2, we'd take half of that, so $3.4 million would be used from fund balance, from the county's fund balance, to fund a portion of that, and then the other half of it, the other $3.4 million, would then go into the landing fee calculation.
And the landing fee calculation obviously would be for airlines and general aviation, general aviation aircraft greater than 12,500 pounds, based aircraft. So.
And I think staff brought these 2 scenarios just based on last year and what we learned from last year, and bringing suggestions forward for a cost share as an option versus no cost share.
Patty, just a point of clarification for the public who may be listening. When we're talking fund balance, it's not the county's general fund, it's the airport enterprise fund? Okay,
Correct.
Just so people know, airport is paying for the airport.
Thank you, Patty, for that clarification. Yes.
Do you mind just going back one slide again? Let me look at it again. Oh, thank you. Okay. We have a decision point here. Questions for staff or consultants on this? Sorry, you can go forward again. I just wanted to, we didn't have this in our packet, so it was helpful
Well,
to recollect.
And I guess to retrace from a year ago, when you held your work session for the 25 budget, it was mid-October a year ago. I think staff brought to you no scenarios, and it was basically the fully loaded rate. Here's what it's going to be. I think during the course of your deliberations during your work session last year, you directed staff and us to model these various scenarios that you had discussed during the work session. Those were brought back to you on your first read, and then, yeah, at that meeting, you made the decision on which way to go, which then led to the second read.
Well, I
So-
think it'll help too as we go forward to show you the difference in landing fees because they do have these scenarios laid out in landing fees. So you'll see
Okay.
what it was this year compared to scenario 1 and scenario 2.
All right,
so I
so
think
we'll
that'll
keep
be
going.
extremely helpful.
Previous
Yeah,
I think
in the
that'll answer my
discussion.
questions.
Thank you.
So that's this table here. Conceptually, this is laid out similarly as a compensatory methodology to what you saw for the terminal. So we start with developing a requirement, this time for the airfield cost center. So again, from the expenses standpoint, these are direct and indirect expenses that are allocated to the airfield. Amortization, same deal that we talked about before, same with small capital projects. So you can see with that and those O&M expenses, you see the $16.6 million for last year in last year's budget. And then so the scenario 1 and 2 are both showing that $6.8 million kind of loaded into the airfield expenses for fiscal year 2026. So again, not amortized as capital, but just included as a O&M expense for that year. We then have O&M expenses for ARF, and there are some. So we get to a requirement. You see, $17.7 million is the resulting requirement for the airfield. There are some credits with fuel tax and excise tax that get credited against that requirement. And then the two scenarios come in. So in scenario 1, it would be the full cost of the runway, $6.8 million, would go into the rate calculation for the fiscal year and recovered by the airport users, the general aviation users and the airlines. In scenario 2, you're basically saying you're going to use $3.4 million of the airport enterprise fund balance to basically offset a portion of that requirement. And so then you have a net airfield requirement, so it's $16.5 million in scenario 1, $13.1 million in scenario 2. For the air carrier requirement, the O&M expenses between the airlines and the GA are split based on landed weight. So for fiscal year 2026, that's about 55% for the airlines, 45% for GA. ARF costs are split, as Brian mentioned, 60% for the airlines and 40% for general aviation. And then the credits are then applied in a similar way. So what we end up with is an air carrier requirement and a general aviation requirement. And those requirements are divided by the projected landed weight for each of those users. And then you get a resulting rate per 1,000 pounds of landed weight. So we see the signatory landing fee then is $15.37 under scenario 1, $12.05 under scenario 2.
In
So-
comparison to this year's.
Right, and then
$7.75.
$7.75 is what it currently is for this year and what it was for the fiscal 2024 as well. So that's the airlines. If there's no questions on that, we can go to the general aviation, which is basically the same calculation, just with the general aviation allocation splits. And
I think we do have one question before
Okay.
we move
Yeah,
on.
so that landing fee increase, the signatory landing fee from 12/15/37 to 12/05, that cost is passed out to the customers of the airlines?
The nexus between airport rates and charges and airline pricing is,
Not black and white.
no, ma'am. A lot of variables go into that. The trade associations keep track of some of this, and historically, the overall cost, if you were to look at a pie chart of an airline, airport fees in the 10 to 12% kind of range of their overall cost. So yes, it's really
At
difficult.
some level.
Yes,
we can
at some
expect.
level it is passed on, but it's difficult to pinpoint. Now, the representatives of the airlines who will meet with Diane and her team
Okay.
presenting this will see this as a very large increase in the cost of doing
So they're
business.
gonna weigh in on option 1 and option 2.
We will present to them post work session
Okay.
to let them know where we're sitting. But yes, we'll let them know that this was presented to the BoCC and what direction we've been given from the work session.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Patty. All right, keep going, please.
Yeah, so general aviation, again, same requirement, this time allocated to general aviation. So those splits that I mentioned, the roughly 45% of the O&M expenses, the 40% of the ARF costs, and then the projected landed weight for general aviation users, and that establishes the rate. So $17.08 for scenario 1, $13.76 for scenario 2, and again, assessed to those users over 12,500 pounds.
Okay.
Just a summary table here showing at the top there, the 25 budget, so that would be the currently assessed rates and resulting estimated net revenue, and the cost per enplaned passenger. And so the cost per enplaned passenger includes both what the airlines pay for landing fees and what they pay in the terminal. So it's a combined. So revenue to you is the same as cost to them. So that's the cost, divide that by the enplaned passengers, and that's that metric.
And I suppose the question of the airline fees and how that fits into an airline ticket. The airlines, particularly the property representatives, look at cost per enplaned passenger more closely than that nexus between the pricing of that ticket, and so as you can see in the two scenarios that are presented today, that 1968 per enplaned passenger cost does increase $9 and almost $14 respectively.
Great. And so my other question would be, if I may, so with option 1, we keep that 3.4 million in the fund balance
Correct.
for future needs at the airport, as if we don't have any coming up. Okay, thank you.
Is this our point of discussion, or is there further presentation?
Oh, we have a few more slides
more?
just
Okay.
to
Just
kind of
two
give
more.
context to.
Great.
And I did, if we go back just really quick, Patty, you mentioned, I just wanted to kind of clarify how that works. So come August or whenever that project would start, the construction of the pavement maintenance project for the runway
April.
next year, April. So
April to
whenever
May.
that starts to whenever it ends, there's going to be an outlay of money, obviously, to pay for that. It's going to come from airport funds.
Right.
The landing fee is assessed year-round. So that, if the entire amount or whatever amount is charged to the airlines in the landing fee, you're recouping that throughout the year.
Right.
So there's at some point an outlay of funds that you haven't yet received for the project.
They'll
to-
kind of be
to actually do the
recouped over
project.
the year.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
And I think like last year, in terms of benchmarking, these are peer airports that have been used, and our firm has used for comparative purposes with Aspen since 2018 or 2019. And you can see here the landing fees as reported by those airports relative to what Aspen, the airport is currently at the 775 versus the two scenarios for 26. So you can see that currently Jackson Hole is 652 and Aspen's 775, and probably the next one after that is San Luis Obispo SBP at 5. Among your peers and among the average of your peers, the rate is significantly higher. But again, these other airports do not have the same runway maintenance issue that you have. So just point that out. And this is a chart just summarizing 25, the terminal, the landing fee, fuel flowage fee, to our knowledge, no change. It's currently 14 cents, and that would remain. And then a shared space rental among airlines. I'm not sure, I don't believe there's any that are sharing space right now, but that would be the rate applicable to them. So again, summary slide for just your information.
I think if we can keep that up for discussion purposes for the board, it might be helpful for them.
Okay.
We brought the two scenarios forward, obviously, knowing that we do have a large project coming forward, but also a thought of being able to step into this or show them the increase right away with zero cost share as an option. Based on last year's conversations, we didn't present burdening the cost on the airport solely. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's check in on these scenario 1 and 2. I think one of the questions that I have is, what can we anticipate in terms of where we're going to be at on that bar chart in future years? Because I just wonder if there's some managing of expectations of like a slow increase, if it's going to end up being increased in the future rather than a big jump after the airport project is done. I'd like to just kind of understand what's expected.
Honestly, with scenario 2, that's kind of where we were going, is showing that gradual step up versus giving everybody a very large increase all at once. So
I think it's important to note with respect to future years that last year was a one-time thing and next year is a one-time thing. In that, you have a unique situation with the runway where you need to put a lot of money into it to keep it going for a year, right? And then in the subsequent year, you're going to redo it. So it's going to be new. You're not going to have that same expense every year. You might have, some more routine annual expenses to repair and maintain the runway once the new one is in place. But you won't have these big ticket items, at least.
Sure.
one will
But
be
what will our
eligible
debt
for
service
federal
be?
funding.
And you'll be eligible for federal funding.
Yeah.
Where that's another unique
And that's a key.
situation this time as well, is that you don't have the federal funding to help back these big expenses for last year and this year.
That's what Diane tells everyone when she goes to the conferences, and they're like, "Why are you so expensive?"
Right?
Have you ever been here? That's why we're so expensive.
No, but I am curious. What are we projecting as the annual debt service? Because if that's $6 million, then the number doesn't really change that much, right?
Right. I think it's our understanding is you're beginning to engage Piper Sandler, your financial advisor, and we've been working with them and will be working with them in terms of modeling those future years' expenses. But I think on a very high level, the concept, Diane, correct me if I'm wrong, but the concept is that the federal government is going to maximize funding for the airfield.
Correct.
And that means your debt service that you'll need to issue for this will be largely weighted in the terminal building.
Right.
Okay, and then probably also allocated out to parking and some of the rental car facilities, so it'll get spread there. But the O&M expenses for the airfield will have some debt service, but will nowhere on the near order of magnitude as the terminal building. And again, that's very conceptually, and I think that the answer to that question will gel more as Piper Sandler begins their work on their forecasting and the structure of the bonds and how they're going to go forward with it. But the terminal will have an impact. So you'll have more pavement to maintain, but it should be in a lot better shape in significantly better shape than you have today. You'll have more to plow and snow. Things like that. But overall, then it's going to come back to operating expenses.
Okay, and is staff recommending scenario 1 or scenario 2?
I think we're okay with either one. I do think scenario 2 provides that step that you were asking about providing them that. I do think that we're fine presenting either to the stakeholders. I do think we're going to get significant pushback with scenario 1, given that large jump. I do think that scenario 2 provides us that ability to go to them with a step program and still take some of that money from our fund balance, but not shoulder the whole cost.
All right, what does the board think? Jeffrey?
So, given the lack of funding and the cost to run the air side, so one board member is comfortable with a 50% increase, which is demonstrated in scenario 2. So it reflects federal environment plus the cost to run in Aspen, and not surprised that we beat Jackson on this one.
Patty?
Yeah, I think we've been pretty clear with the community with the recent ballot question issues that, yeah, there's going to be some increases in overall at the airport, but I think the key point that the public needs to be reminded of on a regular basis is that we do this every year.
Yes.
Every year we review these prices, we look at market, we look at what other airports are doing, and we try and be consistent and fair with the cost that we incur here, because we do have a little higher cost of operating in this valley. So I think that's really key. I think scenario 2 allows us that, as Kelly was saying, that more gradual transition into what we might be seeing in the next few or more years.
Okay, thank you. Greg?
Yeah, I'm actually gratified to see that the staff has suggested they could take either scenario out rather than just suggesting 2 to us right off the bat. But I'll go along with my board and say, you know, I think two makes sense right now. It's always sobering to see what things cost out there, but we're looking at these unreimbursable expenses, and that's my go-to phrase to anybody who asks, and that's why we have to take care of this pavement issue. So I would go for 2, unless somebody else wants to change that.
Patty?
No, I'm not going to change that. I'm just going to say it'll be interesting to see what the airlines have to say. We always wait in anticipation. And like you said, it may be that scenario 2 may make that transition with the airlines a little smoother and with our other partners. So I think we need to keep that in mind too, because we're looking at the need for support from all entities as we move forward with the major capital improvements at the airport.
I will be certain, along with Recondo and our stakeholders, to show both scenarios and that the board is choosing to be this partner and cost share that. I think that will be a very important item that we do bring to the stakeholders, and I can be almost certain to say that most of them will be very grateful that we have opted for a cost share versus passing the whole cost on.
There's
All
always
right.
next year.
You have direction. This will come back in a formal resolution, right? And there
Yes.
will be a public hearing on it?
Yes.
Right,
2
okay.
leads.
So if the public is interested in weighing in on our direction today, we have not given formal adoption yet. There's still a chance to provide public comment on this in December. I'm assuming as well.
December 3rd, is that when it comes back?
That's what I was just looking for, Patty, I believe so. I think it's coming for the 2 reads in December.
Oh, we had the second meeting in November as the first read. No.
Oh, did you have it in the second? We'll clarify that for you,
So the
Patty, and send that
19th.
out.
I have
So
my future agendas.
And I would
right here.
just ask maybe attach the slide deck in those board packets so the public can also. look at it.
Certainly.
That'd be super helpful. Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any last
Thank you.
words? We'll see you
No,
next
it
time.
was great to see you again. Thank you very much.
Likewise.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for good news.
Sorry, we're running a little behind, Ryan.
Kelly,
your
the
next
first
item.
reading is November 19th.
Oh, is the second one
reading
December?
is December 3rd.
Great, thanks, Patty.
Thank you.
Okay, we are gonna move on and try and
Growing
catch up a little time discussing Pickens County electrification project options. this might be our dozenth, is that the word, conversation?
Thanks, good to see
Yeah,
you guys.
probably.
Topic.
Yes.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
All right, who's the full team on this one?
So we've got Michael Port, Kevin Warner, for the first time sitting in front of you all in this new role, and then Peter Rumsey, and I'm not certain if he's on yet, but he's with Decarbonization Strategies.
I'm on.
Oh, you're on. Great. Hello, Peter.
Hi.
So, are we okay to
Go,
start?
yeah, let's
Okay,
go.
great.
Yeah, thank you.
So as you all know, there have been multiple discussions, and what in part we'll show in the presentation is this is a result of going through sort of a value engineering exercise, continuing our desire to want to electrify both the library and the Health and Human Services building. And I think between Jody, who is on vacation, and Peter, they really dug in with our consultants and I think have a really nice plan to present to you all today. And just want to make sure Michael Port also is recognized for his role here, and I think we're pretty excited to get to this point. Couple quick things to recall is to report is that the library board did meet on this, so they were presented these options, and they are in support of this hybrid option for electrification that we will present to you all. With that, I think we'll turn it over. I think Michael's going to kick it off for us. So.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Michael Port, Climate Action Analyst. Before we launch into the presentation, I just wanted to share a couple points of what you should expect to hear in the presentation. First of all, I'm going to start by revisiting sort of the high-level goals of this project and the grant that we received from DOLA to carry this work forward. We'll then get into an analysis and explanation from Peter on the recommended path forward for completing the electrification projects. I also wanted to note here that DOLA grant does expire in December, and so just flagging for you that we're going to need to request an extension on that. It doesn't need a resolution or anything, but it's a pretty informal request, but we will be requesting that of you as well. And a little note here is that the data that Peter will be presenting is preliminary, subject to change. Just want to hedge that the cost estimates that we have today may change in the future. Why are we talking about this, and why did we start this project in the first place? Every time I come in here, I say that we committed to reducing carbon emissions 90% from 2019 levels by 2050. We consider that to apply to the community, but also our government operations. Buildings are the biggest part of our carbon footprint from our county operations, and the library and Health and Human Services buildings together make up about 1/3 of our building emissions from within the county facilities. So these two projects were targeted as high impact projects for our carbon reduction strategy. We also with this are sort of doing a demonstration to the state with trying to electrify existing buildings, especially public facilities. We're sort of towards the front end of trying to do that work across the state. And so this is why those two buildings were selected in the first place. Also, the equipment is needing replacement, so it was timely in terms of maintaining the buildings. So we received $3 million from DOLA, and we're seeing this project as the county demonstrating leadership in building electrification and climate action. As I mentioned earlier, these buildings are a high priority for implementation. The equipment's ready to be replaced. They have a large carbon footprint. We also selected them because they're public-facing buildings, so there's a resiliency aspect and sort of a public-facing education and outreach piece to this as well. And it's a demonstration project. It's a complex project. We knew that it was going to be difficult when we set off to do it, and I think it has been, but we have a good way forward that we want to present for you today. So there's high upfront costs, but long-term energy savings with this. And then we're requiring our community to be very energy efficient and start to electrify. We're pushing for net zero new construction. So we really need to prove to the community and lead by example that this work can be done. With that, I will throw it over to Peter to continue the presentation.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, so last time we met, we talked about the fact that the project is over budget. And so what we've done is we've worked with FCI, a general contractor, in really tightening up the scope and so that we could reduce the price. And here are this table in front of you is showing the HHS building and the library. And you can see the one that's highlighted in yellow is where we are today. And where we started is this original hybrid design. So if you look at HHS, it was $5 million, now it's $3 million, plus or minus. And the library was the $5.3 million, and we're now at $4.2 million. So overall, a cost reduction of about $3 million. So I want to walk through that. You know, where did this come from, and how did it get worked out? So starting, where are we? What's the existing condition? Again, just to remind you quickly, HHS has one boiler. There's no redundancy. It's oversized. It's original. There's a lot of problems with it. If that thing breaks in the middle of winter, the building will have no heating, and it will probably take a good number of days for heating to be able to be turned back on. So that could be quite a big problem. In the library, there's 3 boilers, and those 3 boilers have had a lot of problems. They're over 10 years old, but since day one, they've had issues. As I understand it, right now, all 3 are offline, and there's a temporary heating that's being used, and there's some emergency funding to just get them working again, but they really need to be replaced. So in both buildings, we have to do something. And if we didn't do any electrification, carbon reduction, we have to replace all this with gas boilers. And so that's, you know, how things started to get taken out here. If you look at the cost of operating a gas boiler, this is like per million BTUs of heat. Gas is somewhere in that $17 range. Electric resistance boiler, and that's an option that was recommended in the first report looking at electrification for the county, the Kimley-Horn report. Electric resistance boilers use a lot of electricity. They're relatively lower cost on the construction, but it's not too much. But they're really a lot more expensive to operate. And then the heat pump system, which is electric, but a very efficient version of electric, is the lowest cost option. And also, it's electric connected to renewable generated electricity. It's the lowest carbon option as well. So if we look at what the different scenarios look like, relatively speaking, gas boilers will lock you into high carbon emissions for a long period of time if that's your base source of heating. Electric resistance boilers and heat pumps can be very low if the electricity is coming from renewable sources, which you guys are lucky that you do have that. And then the hybrid approach, which is the one that we're now going after, has the main source of heating is the heat pump, but the gas is there on the coldest days and it's backup and redundancy. So we get 80 or 90% of the annual heating done with heat pumps. Gas does come in there, but because we do this hybrid approach, we make it significantly more affordable. And so that's why we've been going after that, trying to get things to be more affordable. So if we look at the next slide, if we look at where we started with the Kimley-Horn report, it was $5 million is what they said it would take to electrify the two buildings. Construction cost, $5 million. FCI did price out in today's dollars, as well as fully fleshing out the scope where the electric service for the buildings would need to be upgraded. It's a very important part of the cost that was not fully covered in the Kinley Horn report. The actual cost of this electric resistance boiler was $8 million instead of 5. So the report underestimated the cost of electrification by $3 million on this scenario. And that's where the original budget was based, on this $5 million cost, and it was an underestimated cost for the electrification. But again, they didn't have heat pumps. They would put in a system that would be a lot more expensive to operate. Next slide. So if we add that up, if we compare what they were recommending in today's cost compared to the current version of a hybrid, the VE version, the value engineered one, that's the one where we've tightened the belt on the scope. We're now at a $700,000 lower cost for construction with the heat pumps as compared to the electric resistance boiler. That's great news. And then we're also at, over a 30-year period, a $5 million lower electricity cost for the buildings. That's a win-win. Now, next slide. The problem is obviously that we've come in, a little bit higher than what was initially budgeted, right? And that's because the initial budget was underestimated. If we look at the energy cost over the 30-year period, this is just comparing the 4 different options. And we're in a situation where the hybrid approach is the lowest cost one in all of the scenarios. It's slightly, tiny bit lower the original design for the library, but we're pretty much right in there. So sweet spot on the energy cost. Next slide. So if we look at the cost of electrification, if we didn't do anything, no electrification, we would have to spend money anyways to fix the heating system at the library and the HHS building. And that was priced out, and that would be between the two buildings, $2.5 million. For the HHS and library buildings with the hybrid solution, it's $7 million, $7.4 million. Now, we also get the DOLA grant, which is $3 million. It's available for electrification, not for replacing gas boilers with gas. And so the effective cost to the county is $4.4 million. That means that the cost of electrifying, comparing this electrification option to just replacing the gas boilers, is $1.9 million. So next slide. What's interesting about that is that we could actually take that $2 million and say, okay, what's the carbon savings over 30 years, and then what is the resulting cost of saved carbon? And it's $200 per ton of carbon avoided. And that's an interesting number because there are cheap carbon offsets that you can buy. A lot of people question their validity, like planting trees. A lot of larger companies, when they go in with their net zero carbon commitments and want to buy carbon offsets, they actually want to buy really high quality ones that they know they're reducing carbon, and they'll go after these boiler replacements, but they'll also do things like carbon capture. And those things cost between $500 and $1,000 per ton. So you're actually getting a relatively good price on this for what's considered a verified, very high quality version of carbon reduction. So I'll pass it over.
All right.
Hi, Kevin.
So, thank you, Michael. Yeah, we've already shown you this slide, but we only want to come back to it because it's kind of, if I understand correctly, it's this nuts and bolts of why we were, as a group, asked to take another look at this. And so I'll just go through each of them. So when you look at the all gas boiler option, so obviously when you look at that, you get zero electrification out of that, but you do get a much lower price. And so when you're looking at that one, you're looking at $2.5 million, And these are only the construction costs, right? Not the long-term costs. So, and then you go to the original hybrid design, and that was over $10.5 million. Now you do get about 90 to 95% electricity out of this, electric reliance, rather than the new hybrid value engineered option, where you get we're getting about 85% electrification out of that for that cost of about $7.5 million. And then finally, if you went with the all-electric version, you're at that about $8.2 million. All electric, obviously, you've got a clean electric supply, and so you're really reducing the carbon emissions, but you've got a much longer or a much higher long-term cost over time of that. So, so as you look at this, you know, the request that, as I understand it, was really to come back with a lower cost option than before. And so by value engineering this, we've removed about $3 million from the original hybrid design to the new hybrid value engineered design. So, and again, this option does allow us to capitalize on the entirety of that DOLA grant of just a little over $3 million. And then this will walk us through a little bit of the history again. You know, Peter did a good job of talking through that before, but this just puts it all in front of you at the same time. And so with this slide, you can see that 2023 budgeted cost was about a little over $4.5 million. After finding out more about the project and everything, realized that wasn't the real costs. And so then in 2025, asked for an additional $900,000, and again, unfortunately, didn't allocate enough to actually complete the project. And so now we're here in front of you, asking for basically another $2 million on top of what that 2025 budget increase was, to the $7.5 million, to be able to complete this project. And so when you look at that, and we move over to the right there, you see there's about $1.2 million in what we're calling soft costs. Those are design, permitting, you know, Peter's consultant fees, all those kinds of things. Those all come up to about $1.2 million, and then you've got about $6.2 in the costs of the actual construction and implementation, to come up with that 7.4 to 7.5 of total project costs. So you do see that budget remaining. We're asking for 7.5 to give us a little bit of contingency and leeway in there, but anticipating that the cost is going to come in just a little bit lower right now. So, but as Peter was very insistent at the beginning, we wanted to make sure we said, hey, this is the best estimate we've got right now. We've actually do have a contractor who said this is what they think they can do it for, but we all know there's a lot of changes going on in the world today, so that's where that extra almost $100,000 is. So, so really that is the staff recommendation, is this value engineered hybrid design, and we feel like that is the most fiscally responsible way to move forward. It addresses the necessary infrastructure improvements. It capitalizes on the $3 million DOLA grant, and it also really does a good job of moving forward the board's climate action goals. And so that's, I think we're probably ready for questions.
I would just add one thing briefly, sorry, is that in the 2026 budget as it exists today, that additional $2 million is captured in there, partly through rent, partly through general fund.
Thank you.
Okay, Greg and then Patty.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I'm really grateful that the value engineering option came forth. And so thank you for all your hard work on it. I want to thank the library board and Genevieve and her team for suffering through this while we try to figure it all out. it seems like this is the way forward, and I'm in favor of moving it with our goals of carbon reduction in mind. I just wanted to throw out: is there anything else we can do? And I know it's been proposed that maybe there's some other agreements with utilities or something thrown out. Hal Harvey mentioned that, and I'm not sure how practical that is. We may have gone through all that, but I'm also wondering just about what are the energy assessments on the buildings looking like, and are there practices in the buildings that could actually reduce their energy use and thus the cost going forward? So we're doing the best job we can. I'm just wondering if we must be up to date. What's the program called? The energy assessments that Core was doing, perhaps, or are we going to be as efficient as possible in the operations once we have these systems installed? Because that, once again, will just help save money going forward.
Yeah, that is, you're referring to the Building IQ program. Yeah, these buildings are both enrolled in that program, and so there's kind of requirements from the city that we continue to improve the performance of those. As we're working on this, we're also, a separate project that I'm working on is an energy assessment of our county buildings, which does start getting into, like, how can we adjust the building automation system to make sure that we're, cutting down energy by several percent just by managing the building better. Yeah, we are thinking about energy efficiency along with this.
Great, thank you.
If I could add to that, one of the things that we did is we looked for the library, we looked at the snow melt area and cut it down to just the most necessary part of the snow melt. And I think that was like a 30 or 40% reduction in the total snow melt area. That represented like a 10 to 20% reduction in the annual heating bill. A huge part of the heating goes to snow melt, as you guys know. It's super energy intensive. So there was an effort to look at that, because if we make the building more efficient, the heating system can also be smaller and more affordable. And there's one thing that the library and the HHS buildings have gone through, the LED lighting retrofits, which is like very good. It reduces lighting energy, most lights, not all of them. But that when you have a more efficient lighting, it actually ends up requiring a tiny bit more heat. So yeah, a big step forward was in that snow melt discussion.
Thank you.
Patty?
Yeah.
Okay, I have, so we're being asked for an additional 2 million something, plus or minus, out of some ramp and some general fund. Where's the other 5 million something? I know we've got the DOLA grants that brought it down, and we already allocated money in this year's budget,
That's
but it
right.
came from where?
I think that's all, I believe it's general fund for.
I want to know what the hit is to the general fund.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's REMP dollars within the, yeah.
So what is the total hit to the general fund
It should be 1 million.
last year and this year?
1 million.
The rest of it's coming through the DOLA, and
Right.
so we're actually paying for, which makes me feel a little better. So that's good to hear. The other thing is it's my understanding, and I don't have any of the details, and I don't know if maybe you guys do, that the Aspen School District put in all-electric heating system boilers a few years back, maybe more than a few years ago. They learned a lot of lessons from that, the cost of operating those electric boilers, the maintenance, etc. I think if we haven't already spoken with them, I think they have some great knowledge we might want to pick their brains on. I think they've transitioned to hybrids, because the other ones had to be replaced. And it's my understanding that they talked with Black Hills Energy, who does have a program, and they received a cost sharing or a payback or whatever of about $34,000 for the equipment. So something we might want to look at. I don't know if we've spoken with them. I think the electric costs involved with the school district were extremely high, unexpectedly high. So I think that there may be some opportunities for us to work. It seems so we want to be green, and we're going to work with the gas company, which also does a lot with electricity and is looking at this hybrid blend of solutions. And if we haven't talked to them, I would like us to, it never hurts to pick somebody else's brain. You know, I have a concern about Pickens County always wanting to be the first and lead the way. And, you know, it costs us a lot in mistakes and lessons learned. So it'd be nice to learn from others rather than make the same mistakes or make our own new ones. So that would be part of my willingness to move forward. I think the value engineered hybrid is a great option for us. And I thank you for revisiting the issue and coming up with that. But I think that there might be some more input that would make it even a better project for us.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Patty, and I'm not sure that we actually had considered that. I am familiar with a program with Black Hills where they will provide a rebate or incentive for changing from a low efficiency to a high efficiency boiler. So that may be something we can actually consider since we are pursuing this hybrid approach and installing some new high efficiency
I think that's
boilers.
what the school district may have done.
Right. And they had originally installed electric resistance boilers and got locked into those high operating electricity expenses, and that was their lesson learned to sort of stay out of that.
So maybe see where they are in today's world with their hybrids and how they may have worked out an agreement with Black Hills or other utilities. I'm not sure, but worth looking into.
Thank you, Patty. Jeffrey, any questions or comments?
I guess just a comment. Thank you. Given the design considerations and constraints of building in climate zone 7 and our heating degree days, this seems like an elegant solution and balances sort of upfront costs versus O&M. So thank you. And I mean, part of me wants to be a purist and say, you know, damn you, all electric. And the other part's like, I know where you're designing. And then a year later, we'd be kicking ourselves in terms of the O&M costs. So thank you for providing this elegant solution.
Thank you. Greg?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more. Yeah, gratitude for that. I agree with what I've heard from Patty and Jeffrey so far. I just want the public to understand that, you know, we feel like we're going out on a limb. We're going to great expense to follow climate action goals and to electrify, reduce gas use because we are concerned that it is important for our entire global environment, and it's important to be efficient. But there's an irony that I want to point out. If you walk around town, Aspen, in the evening, you'll see a forest of gas-fired burners blazing away, often when there was nobody on the street, nobody in the seats in the restaurants, but they've got their gas burners going. I saw it the other night, and I was struck by the contrast, but how hard we're working to reduce gas and carbon emissions. And I'm not sure the businesses of Aspen have picked up on this yet. And I'm really going to encourage the city to take some action on this because it's within their purview to mandate how energy is used, I believe, by the businesses in the community. Or maybe just people could really take a look at what they're doing because they're pumping out a lot more carbon than we are with these buildings. And so there's a bit of a disconnect there for me, but I still think this is the right way forward. And thank you all.
All right, great.
And all the open doors.
And I know when I checked in with Francie that she had said to me that she was surprised at how much efficiency was still able to be achieved in the hybrid approach, and I agree with her. And I don't think $1 million for this total project is too much skin in the game for us from the county general fund, given that we're relying on fees that we've collected from others to offset exactly for this type of purpose, and gratitude to the state for their grant support as well, because I don't think we would be doing this without it. So I think you have direction. Finally, oh my God. This has been a long conversation.
It's supposed to snow and drop to 29 degrees today. So for those who work at the library, wear your long underwear and good socks.
Yeah, and I'm not sure normally you do a ribbon cutting for like something like a boiler, but maybe it's appropriate in this case.
In the middle of
just
a
keep that in
blizzard.
mind. Okay, Kevin.
With the doors closed.
To your point, given the large commitment from DOLA, they actually usually like being invited
Okay.
to an opening like that. So yeah.
Okay.
Just
Yes,
one
go ahead,
one
please.
quick clarification. We do have 2 out of the 3 boilers at the library working correctly now, and so they
So
do
much
have heat
better.
at this time, and it's doing well over there.
Oh, good.
As
Wait for those
Genevieve
books
zips
to
up.
get cold.
All right. Well, bravo. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, and thanks for catching us up. We were running over, so yeah. All right. The next conversation we are looking forward to having is a discussion about our Healthy Community Fund. And so I'd love to invite our Human Services team to come on up. Gosh, I need one of my fellow board members to shoot me a text before our next meeting to bring in my bag of Halloween candy that's still sitting at home, so we could be snacking on Halloween candy. Yeah. This year my children said, do you guys need a few minutes? Should we take a 5-minute break? Okay, let's take a 5-minute break.
You wrapped up that discussion quicker than I was ready.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Pickens County Board of County Commissioners work session on Thursday, November 6th. We are running just a little bit behind, and we're going to discuss our Healthy Community Fund with Deputy Manager Kara Silvernagle and Health and Human Services Director Lindsay Maish.
Hello, thank you, Lindsay Maish, Human Services Director, not Health and Human Services Director.
It's just the HHS building.
It's okay,
It's like
yes,
HHS Director.
There was a time when I was the HHS Director before I ever came here. So, thank you all for taking some time today. It's been, the public health and human services areas have been under a lot of pressure lately. So this is well timed and something that we felt was really important to bring to you. We've been going through this planning process for about 2 years now to get to where we're at, and given the current environment, it's really pushed us to really start thinking strategically about the Healthy Community Fund. So just to give you a quick set some context for you all. The Healthy Community Fund is a dedicated property tax here in Pickens County to support health and human services and community nonprofits. The fund was first approved by voters in 2002 for a 5-year term and has been renewed multiple times since then, including in 2006, 2011, again in 2018 for 9 years. 2011 was 1 year that there was an increase that was actually approved. Otherwise, most of the increases that you have seen at each ballot year has been due to just oh my God, the word. Tax. Yeah, the property tax inflation. Yeah, thank you. It's like, sorry, words. The Healthy Community Fund is really meant to offer just general operating support. That's how it was created back in 2002 for nonprofits. It does not fund capital projects, the arts, or daycare. It also doesn't do one-time sports events. And it doesn't grant to other granting foundations if they were meant to use the grant to grant again, if that makes sense. The fund is subject to statutory restrictions limiting property tax increases to 5.5% plus growth calculated using whatever the assessed valuation is. So today what we're going to go through, I'm going to do a quick history of the fund and then bring you along the journey that we've had to really revisit some of these core functional services of the Healthy Community Fund.
Maybe just to interject real quickly.
Yep, go ahead.
I think just as Lindsay said, she's going to give a whole history. The purpose of today is both to look ahead, I think, from what Lindsay and her team are seeing in the administration of the Healthy Community Fund and how it's been meeting its goals, but looking both in the current landscape ahead for 2026, and really this whole idea was starting to plant the seed as we all and you all start to look at the renewal process for next year. And so this is some context setting and some background both for 2026 as a programmatic year and 2026 as a potential ballot renewal year.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go back in time to prior to 2002. So before the Healthy Community Fund, by the way that I filled in this information is by interviewing people who have been here since before the fund became what it was, and also by pulling all the resolutions and reading them to see how it has evolved and changed over the years. So prior to 2002, the way that granting happened was that the City of Aspen and Pickens County, we partnered to ensure adequate funding was available for health and human services organizations and for the arts. The City of Aspen supported the arts, Pickens County supported health and human services. Then there was a request to pass a ballot issue to commit funds because those funds were being pulled from the general fund. So in 2002, the timing, because this was post 9/11, there was some worry around the economy and what was going to be happening, and a need for more stabilized funding for our nonprofit partners who were creating a social safety net in the community, because if you go back in time and remember what was happening around that time, it was kind of similar to what's happening today. A lot of the basic needs services were being cut from budgets. We were seeing cuts in Medicaid. They were happening kind of across the board. It was the first year in 2002 that a mill levy was approved by the voters. It was really only used for emergency needs. So those were the historic organizations that were receiving funding for our core functional areas in public health and human services, and senior services as well, sorry. The way that it was set up was that 67% of the fund went to health and human services, nonprofit organizations, and 22% went to senior services. In 2006, the economy is stabilizing a little bit more, and a second mill levy was passed and approved by the voters. At that time, what they did was, instead of saying that the entire fund is used only for emergency needs, they said, okay, and there was a little bit of an increase in 2006, let's put $100,000 aside to set aside for contingency and for any sort of emergencies that might come up. And we're going to we're just going to focus on these areas of health and human services. But since we had an increase, there's now more money to bring in public. So the first two that were not health and human services organizations came into the fund, which were public access television at the time and the Nordic Trails system. So that was the first time it started to expand outside of the normal health and human services organizations. I forgot to mention, in 2002, there were 9 organizations that were funded. In 2006, there were 29 organizations that were then funded. Then we had a little bit of an economic downturn in 2008. And when we came back to ballot in 2011, the third mill levy was approved by the voters. No contingency fund with this one, there was enough. And at that point, it grew to 61 organizations. So you can see over time just really how it kind of went from this really core functional space to funding a lot of different organizations that were doing a lot of work in the community. At that time in 2011, 63%, so we maintained that 63% going to health and human services organizations and 24% going to senior services. The reason there was that increase in 2006 and 2011 for senior services was because the demographic reports showing people were aging in place and staying longer in our community, we're still seeing that happen now, and we have our eye on that as well. In 2018, the fourth mill levy was approved by the voters. I was here for that one. It included, in that one, we started to include 5% for the management of the fund because it had gotten so big at that point. At that point, there were 73 organizations that were funded. There wasn't a lot of change that happened between 2006 and 2018, just more and more nonprofits were coming into the fund. They were learning about it and coming into the fund. So in 2018, because of how it had diversified, we had 46% of the fund now going to health and human services, 22% going to public health. So public health was actually pulled out separately, 15% going to senior services, and 12% going to community nonprofits. The term healthy community began to be redefined at that point, and that was really given the economic landscape and looking at the different way and truly the changes that were happening in public health as well. At that time in 2018, some of you may have remembered that mental health was intended to be pulled out as a mandated service, as well as detox and integrated care. Language is going to get important here, so I'm going to throw some things around. We call them right now mandated services. They're not actually mandated by anyone but us. These are intergovernmental agreements that we have to so it's shared partnerships that we have to be able to fund things like Mountain Family Health Centers, the Basalt location, the local detox. So these are all things that we partner, and we take some of that Healthy Community Fund money, and then it doubles, multiplies, because we have partnerships with the city of Aspen, the hospital, the school district, lots of different partnerships that's helping that money grow and have bigger impact. And I want to mention that because this was really where I think we started looking at how we contract services to be able to better track the core functional services of public health and human services and what the impacts are in our community. We have not mastered that yet, but as we go through the presentation, we'll start to show you a little bit more of what we're thinking of how to do that.
Can I ask for clarity? I'm just a little confused by the phrase mental health removed and included.
Yes.
So removed from what and included where?
So it was meant to be, yep, so, so as I recall, and John, you might have to fill in some of the blanks here too, but as I recall, it was intended to be removed completely the same way that detox was removed, and it was a joint IGA for us
So
to
like
be,
no Healthy Community Fund money is going
no,
towards
it's
that.
so it was removed from the discretionary pot, the one that the Citizen Grant Review Committee reviews, and it was put towards a partnership IGA for us to do the vital mental health services, what is now called the vital mental health services, and changing into the vital behavioral health services.
Okay.
So
Still funded
it was
by the Healthy
intended
Community
to be
Fund,
like,
but this
yeah,
a
it
different
was
part
meant-
of the pot.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
meant to be removed, but then there was a very tough board meeting that was had where it was decided at that point that they would include it on both ends, that mental health could continue to be funded through the discretionary amounts as well as through the intergovernmental agreement. So it just like things started getting a little bit, the complexity grew in the fund, I'll say.
And this was particularly around crisis response. And when we went through the RFP process, an entity that was previously funded was not. And it, yeah. And so the board encouraged a yes and solution there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions before I move on? It's a lot of information.
Not yet.
Okay, we'll keep going. Okay, so where are we at today? 2025, it's sunsetting in 2027. You all have given us direction to pursue a ballot measure next year. It could be the fifth mill levy approval. This year, we had 73 organizations funded, and here's the breakout of our percentages, the 46% for health and human services partners, 12% for community nonprofits, 22% for public health, and 15% for senior services. So with the growing complexity, what I want you to look at in that percentage breakout is health and human services, public health, and senior services. We're going to roll all of those and our recommendations into one pot of health and human services. The total of those that percentage is 83% of the fund going to health and human services in Pickens County. Let's see. Right now, mental health continues to be part of the fund, even though there's that IGA for the mandated service outside of it. We have 3-year grants. We have 3-year grant cycles for organizations that have good track records and have been in the fund for a long time. And the scoring and review process, in the discretionary funding, we have the Citizen Grant Review Committee who reviews every single application every year and will come to you next week with recommendations of funding. The role of that group right now is to review all of them, score them, and make recommendations. A lot of times the Citizen Grant Review Committee will get derailed around things like mandated services. When organizations have really big fund balances, they don't know how to make a funding decision based on what the request is. So like what organizations get more funding, what organizations get less funding, how do we place value when it has grown the complexity has grown so much that it's now, it's spattered almost. So it's just, those are the places that I think in my 7 years here watching and witnessing the Citizen Grant Review Committee, those are the areas that folks get really stuck. And this year particularly around actually what's offered here in Pickens County locally versus what's serving those who live and work in Pickens County.
Greg has a question.
Yeah, thanks. Just wondering if is the term mental health too broadly defining all the things that fall under that umbrella?
It's actually not broad enough.
Yeah. Or maybe, I'm
Yeah.
just thinking if you've got mandated mental health services and then discretionary funded mental health services, maybe they need different names. I don't know.
We're going to get there.
Yeah,
So we'll get there soon in terms of how we're going to start defining some of these things around core functional areas, because I think there's room for both. Okay. Honestly, I think there are sort of the discussions back in 2018 around crisis services. That is a core functional area that must exist here in Pickens County. Things like, I'm trying to think of the types of services though, like even just like, where there's like equestrian, there's kind of like some different types of mental health supports are not necessarily core, but they are super important for our community in a lot of ways. We use them through child welfare, so I think there's room for both in that discussion. We just have to define them a little bit.
Critical versus almost, I don't know.
Yep. So the language I'm going to use today is core functional areas. We're going to get rid of mandated. And be done with that and start talking about these things in terms of what are the core functions that human services and public health need to be able to carry out our mandates required by the state and federal government.
Thanks.
Okay, so just a quick reminder, this was the 2018 ballot language, but the part that's highlighted has not changed since 2002. So the language is really that the highest priority for funding will go to agencies providing basic health and human needs. Other funding will be allocated based on availability. So we really took that in our approach of what our build is in terms of recommending how we move forward with the Healthy Community Fund, both given what's happening in the environment now and as we look into the next ballot year. Okay. So I think it was 2 years ago, John, that we sat down and did this exercise where we started really picking apart, like, what are the core functions? And it really required the public health director, Jordana Sabella, and myself to sit down and look at that based on what are the things that we're doing that are really core to the work that's happening. So where we landed, and there's been a few that have come in and out of this discussion, and I'll talk to you about that in a moment, but where we landed was that there is core public health, access to health care, behavioral health, that's a broader term, Greg. Behavioral health also includes substance use, it's mental health and substance use, self-sufficiency, family safety, aging adults, and food security. So those are driven not only by the mandates of human services, like we provide SNAP benefits to the community. That is not the full range of food security. That is, that's providing for the lowest income families that live here. So we're only kind of one part of the broad system, and there's now a coalition, a regional coalition that addresses many of these things. The same thing goes for some of these other areas as well. So when we really kind of broke out both what the community needs, what the public health improvement plan has in it, what our strategic plan has in it, these were the core areas where we landed. So I'll pause there for a second and see if you all have any questions. Okay, so what I'm going to go into now is to start to address a little bit, Greg, the questions that you had. And it's really around further defining these areas. And what I've put underneath each of these areas is the actual language that's in the ballot right now. So, or from 2018. So the language that's in the ballot does align with most of these areas. It's a little bit different language than what we're using to define it, but I wanted to show you where the past has kind of come up to the surface in terms of how we're looking at core functional areas. So core public health would be defined as communicable disease testing and control, immunization and family planning services, policy development, community assurance, and community assessment. So core public health, there's a few of these that kind of that could fit in core public health, but they fit in a couple of the different functional areas. So care for the terminally ill, I think the one right below that as well fits in there, both to access to health care and core public health. So preventive health services to low-income citizens, such as immunizations and teen pregnancy prevention, to avoid higher costs later. So that's also captured under access to healthcare. That's the second functional area of access to integrated healthcare services for individuals who are uninsured, underinsured, or on Medicaid. So you can see how we're taking the broad language and really narrowing it down to think about what would and at this point, I'm not going to show you this today, but we've already started drafting outcomes that we would want to see in each of these areas from our department's perspective. The third one is behavioral health, integration of behavioral health efforts for high acuity needs into community areas, including medical practices, the judicial system, schools, and the community. And the way that looks on the most recent ballot was mental health and substance abuse counseling and preventive services. Self-sufficiency, this is defined as economic and developmental services to provide pathways to self-sufficiency. That can look like financial advising, case management, support services. On the last ballot, the language was working with developmentally disabled citizens. There's a new phrase that we use there, and their families to enhance their ability to live independent lives. Family safety, activities that improve family safety practices and outcomes through enhancements of child welfare and adult protection, policy, rule, community engagement, prevention, and implementation of mandated services. The way that language looks in the last ballot was protective and supportive services for children, helping at-risk youth connect to community programs and activities to help them succeed, and helping victims of domestic violence and sexual assault that can also live in a couple of the different categories. Aging adults, aging services that prioritize the safety, dignity, and well-being of vulnerable older adults. And the language from the ballot was providing a variety of physical, social, and educational activities for seniors, including support for those who need one-on-one help to deal with the challenges of everyday life. And then the last one is food security, defined as addressing ways to strengthen the food security system to ensure no person is hungry or lacking nutrition by partnering with local governments and maximizing effectiveness and efficiency. There was no language from the last ballot measure that had food security in there. This has been a increasingly hot issue in our community. With the increased prices of groceries and food, and I think COVID really lunged us into mobile pantries, brick and mortar pantries, and just home delivered meals, different ways that we can get good, healthy food to people. So I'll take another pause before I keep going.
I just want to understand the purpose of what we're working through right now. I mean, what I'm understanding it as is sort of the departmental's definitions of what's highest priorities and whether or how the current ballot language is aligning with those from a past time.
Yeah. Luckily, it aligns
Sort of like,
well,
you know,
right? Luckily, the language
A little bit
aligns.
of a current and puzzling the past together.
Yeah, and so this is context setting to show you where we're gonna go. So basically, part of the recommendation is that, well, here, I'm gonna keep going. and it's going to come together before I get in there. But I also wanted to mention this, which is something that we've really invested in the last few years, has been nonprofit capacity building. We've been offering quarterly trainings that have been very well received. Our last training had over 50 organizations that came for an AI training. There's been a number of other ones, and now as a result, the Aspen Community Foundation has set up the Nonprofit Center of Excellence, and they're doing a couple of different things through ongoing trainings and things like that. They are not going to be working in the business of competitive grant programs any longer. They are looking at ways to support nonprofits and local partners around being a fiscal lead for some of these different projects. What we were giving, just to start putting some numbers to this, what we were giving over the last 3 years, we had set aside, we had a really big healthy community fund balance a few years ago, and you all approved for us to do these trainings for 3 years. $120,000 was put aside for that, and then we did the nonprofit capacity grants, which were partnership grants that also will end this year, helping nonprofits build capacity through development. And kind of raising their development eye in the organization. That was $300,000. Now what's happening, we're looking forward to the Aspen Community Foundation taking a lot of the capacity building on. And they have some requests from partners around what that might look like moving forward. And we're anticipating that would be probably around an ongoing $75,000 a year. So just keep that in your mind for now as we go into the next piece. Okay, so if you remember in the ballot language, we had the language that said the highest priority goes to Health and Human Services. So in the way that we've historically done percentages, we're still going to do that, but it's going to change things around a little bit. And what we'd like to see happen is start to break this into a tiered approach. So, so essentially a tier 1 organization will be one of our core functional organizations, like Community Health Services, right? They are our clinical public health arm here. And they'll have very specific outcomes that are related to public health, that public health will need to see happening. The priority goes to organizations that are located here and serving individuals and families who live and or work here. These organizations often either hold separate state, federal, or local contracts requiring them to partner with us. So an example of that is like Aspen Family Connections. They are required through the Collaborative Management Program, which is a grant they get from the state, to partner with child welfare. We have a few other organizations that are like that as well. We can't do our work without them. If we didn't have them, we'd have to do their work, if that makes sense. The funds for these would be distributed through a formal request for proposal process. With collaborative scoring committees, we'd include at least one person from the Citizen Grant Review Committee to sit on those scoring of those RFPs for those core functional areas. Let's see. Let me make sure I'm not missing any of my notes. Okay. Tier 2, so Tier 2 and 3, the Healthy Community Fund doesn't really change very much in these areas, except that Tier 2 will continue to be general operating for Health and Human Services organizations. It meets all the other language, so it's organizations who serve people who live in or work in Pitkin County. There's no obligation through other contracts for them to partner with us. They have crucial services that strengthen our social safety net here. And the funds are distributed in the same way that they currently are, through a scoring and review of a competitive grant process. But they have to be a Health and Human Services organization. Tier 3, same concept. This is kind of what we are right now calling community nonprofits in our program. General operating for organizations, people who live or work in Pitkin County, in a tertiary way to support health and human services. These organizations would actually not be categorized as a public health or human services organization. However, they do work to create a safer and healthier environment for us. We're looking at considering a mini grant process for this tier, where they can apply for up to a certain amount. And it would still be reviewed through a competitive grant process. So I'll pause there.
Patty?
How in tier 1 that you have recommended here, how are those dollars currently being distributed? Not through RFPs, but through a grant process?
In all different ways right now. So some of them are in our discretionary funds. Some of them are through those intergovernmental agreements and our partnerships to be RFP'd, like the Vital Mental Health Services is RFP'd. The detox was RFP'd. Withdrawal management. And then I think the partnership, I'm not sure how the integrated healthcare one, but similar, yeah.
Because it seems, in reading the packet, it seems very complicated. And we're trying to make things easier for people, and I just want to make sure if we're changing the process, we're not making it overly complicated, and for both sides, the people reviewing and the people applying. And the other question I have is, where does our environmental protections, we brought that in some years ago, especially issues related to public lands, et cetera. I don't see them being part of the process anymore, unless you're considering them a tier 3, which is going to limit, we don't know what the mini grant could be, $2,000 or $500.
That's right.
So, and that was,
Or if there's
according
still
to the
funds.
memo,
Yep.
on the first page, cultural treasures and environmental quality, that's kind of, I see that specific language left out of the current recommendation, the language.
Yep.
And I think, I'm gonna speak for myself and the board can agree with me or not, but I think that we are looking at our concerns about protecting public lands, which I think add to the well-being of our community, mental and physical health. And I think that's critical for me, and I'm hoping we can tie that in somewhere. The other question I have is the elimination of grassroots TV. Were we funding it this last couple years, or we reduced the funding for that? This grassroots TV, I remember we had a lengthy discussion years ago, and the reason why we brought it in or kept it in was because of the educational opportunities that grassroots was allowed us to air our meetings and to do special programs and have guest speakers on so people could tune in and learn about what's going on in their community, and also an opportunity to share with them public health issues, mental health issues, environmental health issues, all of the above. And so I'm not seeing that anywhere in here.
So communications is one of public health's core functions. So that is where that would live.
Keep that in there through the tier 1, tier 2, or
So the way that the tier 1, and it's really actually meant to streamline this and make it easier for the nonprofit organizations.
It's very complicated when you read all the language. I'm like, oh,
So
I'm lost.
when we do a request for proposal, we are putting out into the community, here's what we need. Anyone can apply, right, to fill all or some parts of these requirements. And so every organization is invited to apply to whatever those outcomes are that we're looking for from those core functional areas. So that would be the tier 1 organizations, and we're already starting conversations around having shared partnership with all of our municipal partners, as well as Aspen Valley Hospital and the school district. We're talking with them about sort of like all of these core functional areas that we're all already giving to in a lot of different types of ways through IGAs and things like that. And so we would be taking that tier 1, whatever that amount is, and it would be more. We'd be putting a budget to it and saying,
Right.
this much, this is how much, right? And then tier 2 and tier 3 continue to work the way the fund has always worked. So you're going to take a bite out of the fund, tier 1 organizations, and tier 2 organizations are going to take a pretty big bite out of the fund and leave a remainder for tier 3.
So I want to make sure that we're continuing to think about funding tier 3, not giving them a pittance just so we feel good about giving them a pittance. And I think currently under the RFPs, which I know we did for the mental health services, which became very controversial, if I can remember,
I do
the
remember
award of that. So is that in lieu of then just the regular grant process? So some organizations who would now be in tier 1, who in the past have just gone through the regular grant process would now be required to do a request for proposal, which is a different process for people to have to learn.
If it's a core functional area, then yeah, they would go through the RFP process. They could also apply in the tier 2 if it's not one of the core functional areas.
The
that
big
they're
bucks is
providing.
going to be in tier 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
right. Well,
I just,
tier 1 and tier 2, Patty, both of those are
Okay.
going to be where the money is going to go.
yeah, but most of it is in tier 1.
And tier 2.
I mean, it's not equal. Tier 1 and tier 2.
Correct. And maybe I think what is being proposed here today is that this is the framework because it has expanded organically, right? And so
Right.
it's confusing today for everyone. It's confusing to think about the switch. What staff is and what really Lindsay's proposing is here's a way to prioritize, right? And identify what are all the things that the fund has been valuable for and should continue to be funding. And then what Lindsay's going to walk through is the recommendations of what those percentages are. There is still a discussion for you all as the board looking at that ballot question, right, of what those percentage breakdowns could be. And that last piece that Lindsay highlighted of the highest priority given availability is also meant to leave that flexibility for years of uncertainty. So there's future, I want to clarify, there's future discussions. We're really trying to clarify the framework that's being proposed. Sorry, go ahead.
And I want to, one of the statements under some of this with the tiers was if we put this, I don't want to tie our hands for the future when the economy and our funding opportunities, our grants and our federal level and state level come back, where we're tied into this without having to go back to the voters and change the language. So I think that's critical. But I also want to make sure that it's very difficult to prioritize because we have so many priorities right now, obviously, and that human health services, public health are priorities. But I feel as a member of an elected board of commissioners that we have other constituencies that we need to be fair and representing with their funding needs for the good work that they do. So it's difficult. I took a deep breath on that one because it's difficult to say, how do you weigh one more than the other when they're all important? But I think there's a level of fairness we need to be thinking about.
And I'm going to jump in, Greg, and then you can go.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think what would be helpful for me, and I'm sorry if I've missed it, but is like understanding what the goals of reforming this are. Like what's broken, what pressures are there? Do we not have enough money to do what we need to pay for? I mean, that like, let's just be honest about it. If we have to say, listen, sorry, our funds needs to go, the expenses for immunizations are more important right now than the expenses for grassroots TV or Aspen Public Radio or, whatever. Then let's say that, I guess. I'm just not totally clear. Like, I think simplification is always a good goal, but I'm not sure I don't think that's the primary goal here either. And I know we're going to talk about this a lot more in the coming year, but I do think it would be helpful to sort of frame up, like, the program is obviously expanded. Word out on the street, Picken County's giving money out to community nonprofits. Of course, we have 73 applicants now, right? Versus 20 years ago. Like, of course, right? That's sort of natural. And if our goal is to ratchet that in, it would be helpful to have a reason why we need to ratchet that in, rather than just for its sake of itself.
Can really, because your point about immunization is very, very pertinent, especially what's going on with federal funding. But that goes to my point about I don't want to tie our hands. So when the government turns around and starts doing the right things, again, I'm being very optimistic. Our hands aren't tied into funding immunizations. Now we're getting federal funds in, but we have to, So I think we need to keep that in mind that there's so much uncertainty out there. And Kelly was right. How do we,
maintain some
do the priorities now that in 6 months may not be priorities anymore because the federal funds are coming back? I'm being really optimistic.
And you could respond or just flag that as maybe future follow-up, and then Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I agree with what I'm hearing. I did want to ask about how big a change is the RFP process from the way the fund has been approached in the past? Because what it means is you've got to fit into this. Are we trying to make everybody fit through a loop? We jump through a particular hoop, which may or may not be efficient, or may not work for all the groups coming in. And the second thing is, at some point, you're going to need to specify, what organizations are just thrown off of the Healthy Community Fund. Because I'm not certain yet. I think I have some suspicions about what's going to get tossed out, and if we're tightening our belts and we've got to focus, I understand that, and I share the concerns of Kelly and Patty.
Do you want to respond, or should we?
I'll go ahead and I'll start.
Jump in there.
So I'm going to try to address all of it. So the reason, Kelly, that we started looking at this was because we did not have a good way. We started this 2 years ago before there were federal funding pressures, when we were like enjoying ARPA dollars, right? And seeing these kind of nice infusions that were helping build up programs. But really what we found was that it was really hard. We've had a really hard time conveying the outcomes of the money, because the way that it's set up right now is through a general operating approach. And it's very hard when you do general operating dollars to say, here's the outcomes that are tied to that. It's hard to drive impact when it's general operating. And in the fund, we have some of the RFPs in there, in those more formal contracted services where we are driving outcomes, and we're able to get better outcomes. So how could we take our process and do that over all the core functional areas so we can really start to drive impact, so that those taxpayer dollars are really going far and we know how they're going as well, and still maintain the discretionary social safety net that we need to have. So that's how it started. And then the pressure really was laid on earlier this year, where we started seeing requests. The Regional Grantors Collaborative started getting the requests, and we've been granting money through our fund balance, which is now almost empty. So we're getting down to the wire, whereas 4 years ago we had a very robust fund balance, and today we're looking at it, and if we take everything into account, right now it's sitting with the recommendations that are going to be coming to you next week at around $100,000. If we include any of the capacity stuff, you're looking at around $25,000 in our fund balance, which is the lowest I've ever seen it since I've been here. So it was two parts. It was, we needed a better way to track impact and outcomes, which is what started this discussion 2 years ago. And then and then layer on top of that just what's happening in the landscape right now. I want to address the environmental questions. So it's, you all are asking the same questions that we're asking as well. They're good questions, because no one wants environmental organizations to leave the fund. And if they do leave the fund, then there has to be somewhere else for them to go. That's sort of how we've been looking at it. Like if that is, and this is something we'll all have to grapple with a bit, and we'll need direction from you all. But we have been talking with Open Space and Trails, Healthy Rivers and Streams, and sharing our information together and looking at if there are ways that different areas can absorb some of the costs that the Healthy Community Fund is taking. It looks like there is some opportunity there. We're not doing anything with that yet. We're just starting those discussions. And then there's some organizations that don't live in those spaces, and those conversations are happening with the Aspen Skiing Company, because they're also funding many of those organizations.
Their environmental foundation.
So if we look at the Aspen Skiing Company and what they're funding for health and human services and what we're funding for environment, what does it look like if they take environment, and then we do simplify for our partners. We say, if you are applying for environment, you go to Aspen Skiing Company. You don't come to the Healthy Community Fund. And you ask for what you asked for in the Healthy Community Fund and what you asked for from Ski Co. And then those health and human services organizations, like, does it come out in the wash? We don't know. We're looking at that right now. So we are looking into it. We don't want to lose those organizations either. They're really important. And in the third tier, we do believe that they create a safer and healthier environment. And that's important, even though that they're not health and human services organizations. Did I cover all of the questions?
It helps.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're making me think about, like, why don't we have like an environmental philanthropy here? It seems like a surprising, stunning gap
Great
that I've
question.
not thought about in the
Yes.
past.
You mean like,
Like a foundation that raises money expressly around environmental issues in our region, because there's so much passion for it.
is there one? Greg, picking your brain.
Anyway, maybe there is one. It's 3:15. I'm quite possibly drawing a blank, but anyway.
Okay, I'm going to move forward because it is
Okay.
3:15.
Yeah,
This
you're doing
just-
great.
this just
We
gives-
started late, so.
This just gives you a sense of this year, what our fund looked like. This was based on the total recommendations and the balance remaining. We did eat in the recommendations that are going to be coming forward to you, did eat into our fund balance quite a bit. So I just wanted to show that, and again, express that 83%, if you look at the senior services, public health, and HHS organizations, all those three together is 83% of the fund. So we're already doing the highest priority to ours, both public health and human services. Okay, so this is very drafty. I know we're in a work session. I wouldn't consider this formal. This is kind of my first sketch and around what it could look like and what percentage of the fund how would it shift the percentages of the fund. We actually already have budgets for some of those core functional areas for potential RFPs. They've already been created, and then we put pen to paper on what we think some of the budgets would be around for the other ones as well. What we found was, and those are some of those like core functions, you see them on both sides of what we're sort of looking at there. So for the total, we're looking at the tier 1, tier 2 organizations taking about 89 to 90% of the fund. When we look at our total 2026 allocation, that's the recommendations that will be coming to you next week. It's $4.1 million for us to allocate. The total recommendations, if you include the capacity building through this draft budget, would be around $4.4 million. So we're actually not that far off. And that's something just to keep in your mind and keep thinking about when we come back in January for a retreat to talk about polling and things like that for the next ballot year. I'm going to go off this slide because it's a little embarrassing. Okay, so we're in the discussion area right now. So I'm going to open it up. So what questions, I know we've been sort of asking some of those, but about the history and evolution of the Healthy Community Fund, and our recommendations are for refocusing the fund to the highest needs and priorities. Are there any more that we haven't already talked about?
I think it's going to be helpful next week, as we go through the actual recommendations, to like maybe pull out a few examples of like, we think this is totally secure and something we'll always fund forever and ever, to like, you guys might we might recommend that you reduce this to whatever the max, small mini grant capacity is, just to sort of ground it in a little bit of real life exercise.
Or they wouldn't qualify at all if we changed the system.
Right. Something like that.
I think people need that disclosure, Kelly. I think that's.
Jeffrey.
So 2 questions for Nat, not for 2.
Is your mic on? Red light on?
We're just going to leave your mic on from now on.
2 questions, they don't need to be answered today. Is the management fee typical? So in other words, if the management fee was 1.5%, could we bring tier 3 up to $350,000? I think that's why it's there. And the second question, I apologize. It'll come back to me. Sorry.
I know,
I
we're
threw
all
them
like,
off.
ooh, a little bit.
And it's like dark outside.
Yes, sir.
I didn't have to say, it does make me a little nervous. Refocusing the fund to highest needs and priorities, I'm still have to wrap my head around it because, of course, that's subjective.
Oh, I know the other one.
Go
Sorry.
ahead, Jeffrey.
Sorry. If someone gets less than what they're asking for and therefore may not be successful, so I'll give you the example through CDS, congressionally directed spendings. Generally, the allocations were 100%, 30%, or zero. So pushing back on you a little bit, what if more of the grantors received zero and then more received 100%, so they could be successful? Not trying to penalize the people that are getting 30, but saying they might not be successful if their overall need is 300 and they're getting 10. Why give it at all?
Right.
So, and again, it's not, doesn't have to be answered today, but it's just methodology and thank you.
Can I respond to that? One of the reasons we've done that in the past is to give people something, is because they can use that to leverage. They can go to another granting organization and say, we've been supported by Pickens County's Healthy Community Fund. We didn't get all we wanted, but we got this. Can you match it or double it or whatever? So it was a leveraging factor, is my memory serves me well or not at all.
And that's one of the reasons we do the 3-year contracts as well.
Yeah.
The RFPs would be longer than 3-year contracts. Those would look like 4 to 5 year contracts. So that's even more leverage for those core functional areas to go and double
their
that money.
security.
Yep, in other places.
And maybe I'm actually going to ask Lindsay to clarify this. I think the clarification is right now there's not a proposal of limiting who qualifies per se within Tier 3, but I think there's an acknowledgement that Tier 3 would be a smaller pool, so who receives. But I just wanted to clarify on some of the comments that it's not stripping at this point in time what kind of environment, communications, or cultural resources not being eligible for Tier 3, just that's a smaller pool that they might not all get the funding at this point in time, as proposed.
It's a pretty significant cut to their funding.
We've spoken with some of the environmental organizations as well to say, like, if this were to occur, what would the impact? And some say that it wouldn't be much of most of our environmental organizations are actually not asking for a lot. So a lot of them say, and the environmental ones are honestly the ones that the CGRC struggles with the most because their fund balances are so big compared to the health and human services organizations. So the conversation so far we've had is that some are like, it really wouldn't be much of an impact, and some are saying it would be a really big impact. So we're grappling with that.
That would be interesting information.
Well, thanks for that.
Yeah. To address the 5%, just so you know, we try not to spend the 5% every year. We have up to 5%. We almost have never hit that. So we try to keep it as low as we can so that the money goes to the partners.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've given you some additional questions and clarifications we might be seeking, and we will come back to this in several conversations in the coming quarters of next year. Have we provided you enough input? Let's see.
Well, real quick, I just think that this information and the work you've done and the work you're going to be continuing to do will be very beneficial in ballot language for 2026. To show the community what we've done in the past, what we're doing, and what we need to be continuing to do or growing into, with that flexibility built in, that if something changes in the world we know today, that these are our options and opportunities to be a little flexible.
It would be great if we had an environmental grant program, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Like the ski companies is all done by their employees. They put in X amount of dollars every paycheck. That's what funds their environmental program.
That's right.
Be great if we could get other big employers in the county to do the same thing and either go in partnership with the ski company's environmental program or create a broader based environmental funding program.
This is one where I do think we're making some progress in this one, and I think that when we come back in a retreat in January, February-ish, Q1 of 2026, I think we'll have some more answers because
Who's coming back to a retreat and looking at Peacock over there?
Yeah, he'll
Not
be here.
him.
I apologize, but
We're talking about a retreat, John. I just wanted
He's
to
already
cue you
gone.
in.
I think we have time to fit a few in before I
Your way.
As long as they're at the bar, you know. I'll go to that
Speakeasy.
That's
retreat.
a resignation effective immediately.
I guess I would just say, and you know, I think Lindsay, you and I have had conversations along these lines before. You know, there are, I think part of what is just a little bit of attention here that is sometimes a struggle for me is that difference between, you know, that really outcomes driven approach to funding organizations versus easy money. You know, and we've had these conversations about the benefits of organizations, just being able to access easy money, right? And you know, the known benefits that can have for nonprofits, communities, people, you know. So I feel a shift away from that with this approach a little bit, that, you know, I do totally get the need to track outcomes, you know, justify taxpayer dollars. But I think we give something up if that is the full focus of the program. So.
I'm going to respond to that.
Okay.
It's just like when we talked. But really the intention of so one of the reasons we wanted to be tracking outcomes more was because there are core functional organizations that were not performing. And we had no way to hold them accountable because it is general operating. And it is that kind of you know, so what we were trying to figure out with this is how can we do both? Because we need both, and we need to be able to hold organizations accountable if they're underperforming for our right. If they're not doing immunizations, we need to be able to right. So some of those types of things we really need some leg to stand on to be able to partner formally.
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Other.
Thanks.
That's it for me.
All right, and I think this will come up next week as we work through the individual grants.
And I'll be here for that.
I'll see this
Yeah.
okay.
Don't let us get too bogged down in that. I think we'll be
We have
bogged down
15
enough in
minutes
the
next
actual
week to see
grants.
it.
But
15 minutes. Well, we made next week's longer, just so you know. So we'll have much more time to talk about this.
all right, great. Well, why don't we take another 5-minute break and we'll let the next team get set up.
Thanks,
Is that
guys.
okay, or does the board need longer?
I don't need longer, but I'm going to recuse and just figure I'll remove myself from this presentation. I'll probably watch it from a screen somewhere else, but I just think I'll stay out of the room only because I have a family member who's has a financial interest and works with Atlantic Aviation, and so as I recused before in those decisions regarding the contract, I'm just going to remove myself from this next thing, but I'll be waiting for your call. When it's done, I'll come back in.
Sounds good. Thank you, Greg. All right, we'll be back in 5 minutes, please. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Pickens County Board of County Commissioners work session on Thursday, November 6th. We are going to discuss the capital improvement plan at the FBO with our fixed base operator, Atlantic Aviation. And so I will turn it over to our airport staff. Huh?
Thank you so much, Kelly and commissioners. We are here before you, myself, Ryan Mahoney, our deputy county manager, and Atlantic Aviation, our partners with the FBO. We have Jonathan and Brandon here who will be presenting, just to give a little background information before we get into their presentation. As many know, we issued an RFP for FBO services in August of 2022, leading a very extensive RFP process. Atlantic was selected for that, and that started roughly a 2-year negotiation process with Atlantic to finalize that lease on December 3rd, 2024. So thank you, the commissioners that did that. As part of those lease requirements, Atlantic has to provide a capital improvement plan, such as us in return supplying the ALP for you, which we have done. They did bring that to the AAB on July 17th of this year. That did receive approval to move forward to the BoCC, and I believe your presentation will be the exact presentation that was given to the AAB.
Yes.
So with that, I will hand it over to you, Jonathan and Brandon, whoever wants to drive.
Yeah. Well, Brandon he's got all of the answers. But I'd like to start by saying thank you so much for making time for us today, and we are excited and honored to. Okay, there we go.
Start over. Take it from the top.
Okay, we're excited to be here. So we'll just start with the. I wanted to also just kind of step back for a moment with this slide in particular and talk about the vision process, and I was honored to be a part of that process and how we came to the conclusions and the goals and everything that we found to be valuable to this community, and so with that, we have made a few changes, and I wanted to point those changes out in this slide particularly because I think that as we explain this to you, you'll see why we made the changes. They actually meet more of the core values that the vision process really identified as important to this community. The goals and everything talked about the sound reduction, talked about the environmental impact that how much we can reduce of that, and through design what we can do as far as safety also, and just the efficiency of the airfield. We in the vision process, the FBO was up where that, and we'll show on the mouse there. It was up in that area right there, and we have moved the FBO back to where it almost sits today. And there's some good reasons to do that. And this, I'd also like to say that it was great. The vision, the AAB did a lot of work with us with their feedback, and also to run through the traps. We actually we walked the ground with them to go over why this makes sense and meets these goals. But one of the reasons for doing that is where it's located concerning to where aircraft are actually exiting the runway. And the main issue was we did not want to have aircraft sitting on the ground running for long periods of time waiting to taxi because of where the FBO was located on the field. Mm-hmm. And as we ran through the traps on that, having them have the ability at Alpha 4 to exit onto our ramp eliminated a lot of that run time. It also allows other aircraft to position to move down the taxiway in an orderly fashion instead of a head-to-head situation that you kind of can just see how that could happen on that taxiway. So that was one aspect, was not to have a lot of airplanes running at one time and have that fuel expended at that time. One of the other big part with this, why that decision was made, was with the sound mitigation. And we've got some great slides to talk about that and how we're going to mitigate that sound on the ramp there with the ABC being across the street. But that is the largest difference, or the difference that we have from the vision plan that you've seen and remember. And then today we're talking about the east side of the field. We included slides on the west side of the field because our total capital expenditure plan it involves that, but we're not doing anything with that side of the field. And I just want to make that clear. That is down the road. It is
a separate environmental process, and we are all on the same page with the FAA that we are moving forward with the east side first and the runway shift.
So as we talk, I mean, I'm mainly focused on the east side. We do have slides to show you what we were thinking for the west side, but that's just preliminary and going to happen at a later date. Okay, did you have anything you want to add on that?
I'll just say, I'm not sure I'm totally understanding the circulation concerns, so maybe as we move through, just clarify those.
Sure, absolutely.
And I have one. So you're going to be rebuilding an FBO terminal, quote unquote, kind of in the existing space. What are you going to do in the interim while you're building? Will you touch on that as you move forward?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. This might be the better slide, though, to look at if you want to respond to that, because you can get an overall.
Yep. So this was, and we had a lot of discussion about this, and Michael and Bruce and Andrew Doremus, we walked the ramp, and we also talked about this. And Andrew even brought up several times how he had actually been a part of a team that wanted to build another FBO down by the tower, and the issue was always the circulation on the field. So number one, having the FBO down there means that nothing can leave that ramp if something is on final. So if you've got an airplane on final, 10-mile final, you can't send them down
Primary
that taxi.
ramp that I'm looking at.
So if the FBO was on the overnight parking ramp that you see there.
I'm going to put the cursor over.
Yeah, if you'll just put, if it's there, you're basically sterilizing your taxiway. So if it is down on the primary ramp, the majority of aircraft can exit Alpha 4 and move directly onto a parking ramp. And so you do not have to, you can actually have aircraft waiting at Alpha 4 at that intersection, and then as they exit, they move right down. And so it eliminates hold times, because the way the airport works in the busy season is that we will have maybe 7 to 10 aircraft landing in a pretty quick manner.
So they're coming off A4, they're either going straight to the primary ramp or turning north to the overnight parking or something.
Yes. Yeah, it allows sequencing on your taxiway. And it also, and the big issue would be the amount of aircraft waiting while all those airplanes are landing. They have to be ready to go the moment ATC says, pull out onto Alpha and proceed down. So they're running their engines during that time, and that's what we're trying to keep from happening.
And just add a clarification, most of your activity that's coming off of Alpha 4 will be on your primary ramp, not your overnight parking.
That's
just
right.
so we have that confirmation.
Yes, no, and that's,
so they're going to be traversing to your primary ramp.
They'll
not
be
the overnight.
moving directly onto the ramp, and they also shut down quicker. Everything happens in an orderly fashion, and it was great to walk through that with the AAB and to really vet that out, if that makes sense or not. And I'm happy to say everyone agreed with those recommendations. Did that answer?
I think so. Did you have a question?
No, I think it reiterates the concerns of the neighborhood. So
Yes.
It's laying those fears, which is the idling and the fumes. So
Yes.
I think you hit it straight on. And sorry if that was the leading question.
No,
Yeah.
we're going to get to that point
Yeah.
also. I'm
Absolutely.
excited for it. Ready?
Yes. So this is just general ideas as far as what this looks like. And one of the concerns was that it looked too red. We are not going with a red FBO. Meg would kill me, so she already told me that we can't
Very
do that.
Bauhaus.
Yeah.
So yeah, so but something along these lines is what we're looking at, and you see the land side, and then the air side.
And how big is this building compared to the current terminal?
It's similar in size. It's
This is about 7,500 square feet, so nearly identical in size.
Modest Aspen building. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So your interior light exposure would be towards the air side, not towards North 40?
Yes.
Correct.
Because we have a lot of people concerned about light exposure, light pollution.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I think one.
I kind of like the red myself. But.
You like the red? Yeah. I think the technical term here is that'll be similar to a Core 10 steel, so it'll actually rust over time. It'll patina. Rust is maybe not the right word there. It'll patina, and it's intended just to blend in. You just won't see it. And excited, we've partnered with CCY. They're local. They know everything that we need to know about how to make this look and blend the way it should, as it ties into what you folks are doing in the terminal, as well as just community. Ready?
Yeah. And this is the west side. So once again, we're not touching the west side, but this is what we proposed, and this would be our recommendation, and just wanted to make sure we met the lease requirements and had that had this for you to see this. But if any questions.
So some important things to point out. The building on the left would be the pilot lounge, flight school area, things that they have been asking about, bathrooms that are their own area. And this would be for our local pilot community,
Absolutely.
not transient aircraft.
Their own parking, vehicle parking.
Correct.
And just a place to flight plan if they want to do that. Flight planning's become so interesting now. It's an iPad and a couple clicks. It's crazy how quick it is. But still, they can do that there, and a really nice facility for them. Something that'll be a great home for our community members.
Good.
So this is that middle section, and do you want to?
Yeah, I'm happy to. We refer to this as kind of our central core area, so you'll hear that a lot over the course of the next 2 or so years. So we'll start left to right. You can see where the tower is. We are reworking their parking lot, so they'll get a new parking lot as a result of this. Moving just one step to the right is the fuel farm. Right now, that's scheduled to be 160,000 gallons of Jet A, with the capacity to go to 200,000 gallons for future expansion if needed. Again, one step to the right is the community hangar. We're approximately 24,000 square feet there. And then we have a GSE and charter facility attached to that. That would be a lean-to building. And that'll house, of course, a small shop space for Jonathan's equipment and ground service equipment and working through that. We'll have a support area for our line techs to work out of, catering, and all of the things that come off of an aircraft that just need to be stored so they don't freeze. And then charter offices and tenant offices that are required for part of your tenant spaces in operation. Part of our program is snowmelt and a significant amount of geothermal. So this is a LEED certified program. Every facility will be LEED certified, and right now we're tracking towards a LEED Gold, which is it's challenging to obtain and it's expensive, but that's what we're working towards just because of the components that we have going into it. So part of that, the heat pumps and geothermal system will again be just to the right of that, and we're working through how do we best program this to does not take up as much land as maybe is what's shown. So again, this is early concept. A lot of engineering still needs to go through that. Just one step to the right is the existing maintenance hangar. We opted to leave that in place, and we will renovate that. We'll also bring that up to a LEED certified building. We're committed to doing so. We already have the scorecard ready for that, and it's attainable. Moving to the right, you'll see an eVTOL pad. Nothing special there by way of infrastructure, more so that is the dedicated area when eVTOL becomes a reality here. We are ready, and maybe it's not today, but the proverbial tomorrow could be here, so long as there's enough power in the valley to charge one of those aircraft, they can do so. And finally, one step to the right is the FBO. So the existing FBO, to answer your former question, is just to the right, and I love being animated. Normally I would stand up and look at this.
You could jump up and be Vanna White. No problem.
I am not as good as Vanna, but this area here is where the existing FBO is today. So we will be able to operate and have a relatively minor and minimal impact to the airport users during this construction.
And what you're about is that?
Yeah, we are trying very hard to align with the runway closure so that we can even further minimize the impact. We can't build this in 7 months. I would love to build this in 7 months, but we will get through the major part of the earthwork, concrete, and those areas that are weather sensitive while the runway is also closed. And then we'll work through the winter season while we're undercover.
I just want to make note that you worked very closely with us, that should not adversely impact our construction. Because I know there was questions there whether that would be, a detriment to us with resources in the valley. And you've worked extremely closely with us to make sure that would not happen.
Yeah, that's.
How do we ensure that? I mean, we're all competing for the same contractors and the same workforce.
Same
Large
questions we ask.
Yeah.
Oh, 2 men and a hammer.
Yeah. Yeah. Jonathan got his tool belt, and I think he's gifting me one for Christmas, so we'll both be out there. We understand a large part of the runway closure is going to focus on the runway. And so that is a significant amount of earthwork and asphalt. We're, as I would say, punting on some of that work to align. Our asphalt will be ahead of the runway asphalt, or we'll phase it in a way that we're just not doing asphalt at the same time. But it would benefit everyone to use the same group and outfit while they're here with the runway. It's the same asphalt mix. It's a P401 mix. So we can do it in a way. Most of ours is a mill and overlay. So we can mill and overlay the day after the airport closes, and airport won't quite be ready for that type of work. So we'll have our asphalt done within the first couple of months, and then that team would roll into paving the runway.
And I would also just point out that the people who build hangars are not the same people that will build the terminal or work on the runway, right? It's one of those things that the people who build fuel farms are very specific. We work with them around the country, and those types of items are definitely not going to compete with the projects you guys are working on. And even with the FBO, we're probably looking at concrete, but not necessarily, and it wouldn't be finished anyway, but not the same size or the type of company that would build a terminal. But absolutely, we are open and to making sure that whatever our phasing process is complementary to the county's goals and schedule.
100%.
Thank you.
Kelly,
Yeah, Patty.
there's a lot of parking. How much parking you have now? There's 3, 4 parking lots?
So this is encompassing the parking that we have. It's not that far off from what we currently park. It looks like a lot, but if you remember, there's a whole nother parking lot that's going away here. So that kind of gets shifted down. So
A lot of the parking, not most, but that you see that's obvious is haphazard. They just pull off the side of the road there, like the valet or the limo services. So hopefully it'll be a little more organized. And I'm assuming, since you're going for leads, the snow melt will be geothermal or solar.
yes.
And John, what's the name of that parking? It's not Kiowa, but it's close.
IKEA.
Yeah, IKEA. It's like IKEA furniture store in Kiowa, the Indian tribe.
And the
That's-
goal there isn't necessarily the specific ICAO so much as having an organized
That's what
parking for safety and future electrification
And
and
yeah,
such.
infrastructure
Yes.
for future electric that lines up so you don't have to dig up the
Right.
ground surface again.
Right.
That's part of all of this.
Yes. Wait a minute.
The infrastructure, building the infrastructure for like
For
EV
the-
toll, et cetera.
Yes,
is
for
I
the
think what you're
Organized
asking.
parking of planes, and then the other was the parking of vehicles on the snowmelt will be renewable energies of some sort.
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
Because that's a lot of snowmelt. I know if Greg were here, yeah, it's a lot of snowmelt. So as long as we keep it green, we're good.
Yes. And once again, the reason for doing that was to keep the chemicals down as much as possible for the ice and keeping people from slipping and falling as much as possible. But yeah, it's all
And any opportunity for permeable surfaces, like at your front parking of your terminal, would be greatly appreciated, just because that also helps with lots of environmental issues. Just the mass of concrete or asphalt. Okay, thanks.
I have a huge team of engineers who would agree with you. That's a massive amount of snow melt. By the way,
I'm going, okay, snowmelt.
you are
there's
spot
another,
on.
Wait, there's more parking. And then there's a parking over there that I can just see parking
That's FAA
spots.
tower parking.
Right
So
behind the
I
tower.
want
That's-
to make
that's
sure
the
that
tower.
that's
Tower.
just being relocated.
So
for
that's
them.
being relocated, and that's for the tower employees.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we get into the
Yeah. To just a high level here, we'll dive into a couple of these in a moment.
There's the snow.
Yeah, there's the snow melt. Couple of just key moments for our east side development. We're looking at sound walls at various lengths along the south end of the ramp. We'll dive into that again. A landscape berm, we'll show detail on that. 100,000 square feet of snow melt, which is distributed in the best use or the best uses in areas that make the most sense. We're not going to snow melt an entire apron, not the best use of that snow melt, keeping it landside for customer safety, where you're not walking across snow and ice. So kind of those high touch point areas is where we focus on snow melt
You might want to add to the slide with renewable energy,
with renewable energy.
so people don't go 100,000 square
Yeah.
feet of snow melt.
Yeah.
we can do that.
Put
Yeah.
in renewables.
Okay.
Of course, there's
What's that rent fee gonna be?
no
Build
comment.
us a new library.
Evatol is a part of this. And of course, we've got a new north ramp that we're working through right now.
I will say, I'm just going to call that out with the new north ramp. They've been excellent partners with us because that new north ramp that they're talking about does require some relocation of equipment. That would be FAA related, and we're working through that. That may be 27 during our large closure for that. So again, just want to point out you've been really good partners with coordinating with us to make sure that we're making the most efficient use of time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kind of a key component of this entire development outside of renewable energy is the sound wall. I think it's maybe to give some perspective here. If you're working again left to right on the top image, Highway 82, which is kind of off screen to the left. And then there's the airport property line. Then there's the small existing berm today that has trees and some screening. And then there's the interior airport road. And that's really where our leasehold starts and where we'll start to develop this berm and screening, landscaped screening, which rolls into a sound wall. So the majority of this sound wall is going to be visible from airside. You're really not going to see much of the sound wall from land side. You will see a portion of it. I don't want to misrepresent that, but that will be at a typical airport height fence level. So if we're at 8 feet today, you can expect to see an 8-foot sound wall above the berm, but not something that is a precast wall that's just going to, rephrase that, it's not going to look like a prison. We understand what we're doing here and how it still needs to fit within this area. So it'll be a block retaining wall or something similar. Again, there are engineers who are working through that are way smarter than I am. But the way that it's situated, and you can see the aircraft on the right, a majority, if not all of our aircraft on our specific primary ramp, that wall is above where any of that engine noise would be, or the engines are positioned. So it's significant. On our next slide, it'll start to make sense as to why that's kind of a cool detail.
I know there's a specific formula for sound walls so that you're not taking the sound and just tossing it over. And I know that has to do with height and slope. So that was part of a lengthy discussion years ago about protecting the North 40 from noise and emissions, but for when you come to the noise. So it'll be interesting to see if you're only going to have an 8-foot wall on the ramp side. Is that going to deflect up and over? Because usually the slope is kind of the other way. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Like you said, that's why engineers do that.
That's right. Well, they did part of that for us. So here we go. This is, I apologize, this is exciting stuff. So forgive the excitement here. On the left, this is what our friends in the neighborhood across Highway 82, this is what they will hear today. Existing conditions. The star on the left represents, we'll call it a Challenger-sized aircraft. And we had a third-party consultant, Landrum Brown. They're based out of Ohio. They do this nationwide for airports, these noise studies. So we commissioned them a couple of years ago, actually during the RFP process. So we've had time to really digest this info. And they set up sound stations. You can see the 4 site dots within that community over there. And they measured noise throughout a period of time over a course of several days. And this is the average sound heard in that community. And so the APU is running on the left, that red star. That's what we expect those folks are hearing. With the sound wall as designed in that 18 to 20 foot various height along that entire primary ramp, and that goes from, the sound wall goes from maybe this will work, from these 2 aircraft here on the lower right. That sound wall really starts there and moves up and around and connects to the FBO. So it's mostly a continuous wall. You can see what it does for the sound in the neighborhood across the street. And looking at the numbers in the top right, you'll see occasionally perceptible is an orange, and then the yellow is possibly perceptible, and then you get into that lime green, which is unlikely perceptible. So just for a moment, if you'll take a mental snapshot of what this looks like, and I'll come back to this slide, but why this is important. They were able to, while doing this, peel out all of the other extraneous noises related to the airport. So if we move the airport 100 miles away, this is what our neighborhood would hear as far as sound goes just from Highway 82. So the image on the left is existing rush hour traffic, vehicle traffic. That's today, what the neighborhood hears today. The one on the right is just your standard nighttime traffic. So these are folks going from Basalt to Aspen to go on a date night at 8 o'clock. That's what that traffic level represents. Real numbers, real data. We've shared this with our airport team. We didn't make this up. So regardless of where airport is in our operation in particular, there's still noise. And in fact, it's almost nearly identical in a decibel level to what it will be after the sound wall. We'll pause there.
For a moment of silence.
For a moment of silence. Well placed.
Jeffrey.
Have you done similar work yet for air quality? So will the sound wall also help? And can we do a before and after study for air quality for the residents and the businesses?
I think that is reasonable. Have you guys worked through anything air quality?
So glad you asked,
Okay.
because my AAB may not be happy with me for providing this update before they get it. But whatever miracle was worked with the FAA, even in the shutdown, we did get approval finally for our 7460 to put our air quality monitors up on the airfield, and we are full speed ahead on that, and working through the install on that.
Awesome.
So.
Okay.
Will these be electric APUs though?
We already have no, you're thinking of GPUs. Ground power equipment. There's GPUs that we pull up to the aircraft, those that, and all of those are currently electric. We have a backup that we keep in the basement in case we lost power and couldn't charge them or something like that. But we have 10 electric GPUs that are silent. There's a little fan in there. When
I'm just thinking
when
about
it's
some
hot.
of the complaints we've got from North 40 that like when they're running,
The APU,
their air things go off at home.
the APU is the really small jet engine that's on the aircraft, and it is a part of it just generates power to run the avionics and things like that. And that's been the issue as how that's running and making that noise. But that's what we're comparing against with this
Got it.
this sound portion.
But on that note too, Jonathan, you've been working with our committees too on how we can help encourage reduced usage of that and length of time. So I think that's an important point too to bring up, that we are working toward that, and trying to encourage the pilots to minimize their time doing that.
It's my understanding that the long-term goal would hopefully be that people didn't have to start their jet and let it run for a half an hour to warm up. That the APU would, just like a diesel truck, if you plug it in, to through your kitchen window and run it out to a battery and start your diesel truck up, you don't have to idle it as long. And it's quieter because the duration is shorter.
Yeah,
and the emissions are much less.
And I think that there's just some understanding in the community. Their jet engines are not, they don't start those up and let them just run.
People swear they do.
I know they do. I know they do. I talked to someone.
Ask Jackie when she was living across
I know
the street.
Jackie and I have talked about it, but she's come on the ramp and seen, and the APUs are much smaller than one of the 2 or 3 jet engines, right? It is substantially less. It uses much less fuel, the whole 9 yards. But I understand what they're saying, and I know that they think everything's running full bore and everything. We received that feedback. I think with the sound though, I think that the wall helps with that a lot, and just with the environmental piece and all that. I think it's really hard to know what is highway, and because I will occasionally leave the FBO, go across to that part. Yeah, I will, and I'll have my lunch over there. And what I see more is and hear more are the vehicles and the smells from those trucks or whatever they might be.
Buses.
The buses, maybe. I don't want to cause an issue here, but I would say that that's going to be the hardest part of knowing what's really happening there. I just that was just a personal observation.
If I may, too, our whole rolling 12 months of monitoring air quality and emissions is to have it for our month closure this spring. So we will be able to measure with no airport activity what that level is to help.
That's great.
Well, it's tough when you complicate
analyze
the
that.
buttermilk with the buses during the ski season, the buses, the people dropping off kids, the moms keeping their cars running because it's cold out and you want the kids to jump in a nice warm car. Thank God I don't have to do that anymore, but, well, maybe. But yeah, it's very complicated in that neighborhood with the different transportation issues and between noise and emissions.
All right, let's keep going because we have some other things to discuss too. Thank you.
Just, those are incredible.
sorry.
That's an incredible improvement. I mean, we
Yeah.
should, like, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Again,
I agree.
as someone who stood out at Brush Creek Park and Ride, we exceed 85 dBA, 8 decibels, on most landings. So those are incredible numbers. So
No, appreciate that.
congratulations. And you're
Yeah.
modeling so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Sorry
it.
to, thank you.
We're getting him earplugs when he stands up. Standing in the park.
Great.
And once again, this is the west side, so I don't think we need to waste your time at this time with this, but just wanted to make sure if you had any questions or wanted to address anything here, we're more than happy to.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this would always come back to us because there's a whole process to re-review it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
This will require a whole new environmental process, which we've tried to make very clear to everybody that this is not covered in our current
Let's
EA.
start it now. I was kidding. I was just kidding.
Few things going on, that's all.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
And then,
Just another overview.
yes.
And just a high-level preliminary schedule where we anticipate kind of the order of operations and largely on track here, working through CADEX study. It is just important we don't get ahead of we just don't get ahead of ourselves here in making sure that AAB, BoCC, airport teams, in large airport teams are all aligned. So I think we're still on track as far as where we are, but we also recognize time is of the essence, and if we're looking to start our construction in alignment with the runway closure, then now is the time to start our design.
Any questions
And that's the end there.
on the schedule?
Back to that red building again.
I guess I'm looking to staff for a little more clarity on steps ahead for us. Like, this seems like schematic design, like this is not the level of detail that we would or like see in a full planning review or something like that. So I guess I'm just wondering what comes back to us.
So, this is the capital improvement plan. So it is meant to be high level, sort of preliminary. We would bring this back to you in a one read resolution. The lease does contemplate approval through the county. There is no specificity on exactly what that approval is, whether it's a resolution or just a sort of consensus from the dais. But we thought we want to make sure we memorialize that approval. Part of it is that we will be bringing back sort of that more detailed planning process through that locations and extents. And we need to then put their project in with our project so that that can all move forward in a similar time frame so that, you know, our schedules can, you know, continue to align. So you will see more of this, you know, coming in the not too distant future in 2026.
So yeah, this is step one
Yeah.
in the process for BoCC.
And then does the FAA get involved in this layout at all?
I'm so glad you asked that because we have been working with that. As far as the environmental process, it would be what we call a CADX. And we have been working with them because as the sponsor, we are responsible for sending that in for them. But we have been working closely with you, with our project management team, Jacobson Daniels, to submit both your CADX and continue on with our process. So it is working in conjunction with so many things on the relocation and things that you'll need. So yes, their involvement is there and we have been working closely with them.
And what is the degree of detail that the CADX requires?
Most of that is the equipment move, anything that's shifting or moving. For this, the categorical exclusion is really easy, not easy. It is an easier process than environmental based on what you're doing, right? We're not, the small amount of pavement you are adding on the north ramp is about it, and then you're replacing in kind. So that process is, I don't want to say simple because it is not simple and it is complex. But given the process and environmental, it's correct. It is the simplest version to do, given that they are replacing in kind. So, as far as space reservation, like the ALP, that's already been on the ALP to say this is where the FBO is. This is aeronautical use.
And then just give a preview again. Location and extent goes to the P&Z with a recommendation to us.
That's correct. So it'll go to the P&Z first, and then P&Z will weigh it against the master plan, the WAMP, the West Maroon plan, and then make a recommendation either for or against, and then ultimately it would come.
You've got correction.
Yeah, just a quick correction on locations and extent here is the Planning Commission actually makes the determination. If it is denied, it comes back to this body for
So this is our last look
approval.
at this.
Well, we can bring back, but yes, in some sense, this is a you know, the step to allow Atlantic to take the next step in the design process. However, we will be bringing it back to you because the location extent applicant is actually the Board of Commissioners. So you will have an opportunity to see that plan before it's submitted to the Planning Commission for approval. And then if they deny the plan that you're submitting, then it would come back to you and that denial can be overridden with a supermajority vote of the board.
Okay.
So it won't be the last time you see it.
Great.
Can we call it up to us if we want to?
Nope, it's
Sure.
state law.
Can we appeal it within 15 days?
Well, remember, you're the applicant.
I know. I was just thinking about the fire station, but we weren't the applicant in that
So you
one.
can't call it up and improve your own application.
You never know where we might go, John. Okay, sorry, Kelly.
Good.
Okay, I'm glad we'll see this again. I'm sure there's things I haven't thought of. You'll all come back for we discussed a formal resolution with public hearing to support, to
I believe
approve
November
this
18th.
capital improvement plan.
And it would be the one
read.
read.
Yeah. Does that sound okay to everyone?
Sounds great.
Okay. Thank you. We will see you
November 18th.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Nice to meet
Cheers.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Good to see you guys.
I think
All
we're done with
right.
you now, aren't we?
We're a little behind. Let's see if we can catch up.
You get going.
Greg. You text Greg.
While we're waiting for him, can,
Please come back to the boardroom.
unless he
You
rode
see
his
him
bike
milling
home.
about out there. Steer
He
him
said he
back.
was tuning in, so he
He was
might be on his way
wandering
down.
I think he
around.
said
Although he
downstairs.
poked his head in here for a second and then
Okay.
left, thinking
wondering what we were up to.
Okay, is Melissa waiting to join us? Maybe we'll skip ahead to employee holiday calendar.
Or future agendas?
Oh, yeah, we have
I'm just
that.
skipping over future, just to hear the employee holiday calendar while we're waiting for Greg.
Okay.
And Jeffrey's left.
'Cause I
Jeffrey,
have
where are you
some
going?
Well, come on, I have future. Jeffrey? Jeff, we're
Are you coming?
continuing.
We don't have a quorum if you leave, okay. There's Greg. All right. Oh, all right. Well, we'll go back to future agendas and stick to our agenda. Okay, future agendas. So we had some discussion in earlier executive session today that we'd like to continue the county manager's office personnel discussion in exec. Probably for as many weeks as we can get John's time before he goes, to cover a number of items regarding our transition in leadership. So we'll look at
Maybe
adding
put
that.
an hour on or two next.
Yeah,
Wednesday.
Ry does have something else he said he'll talk to us. He thought maybe we'd work through lunch again if we need to next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday is the
Wednesday.
holiday, so it's
Sorry,
Wednesday.
next Wednesday.
Don't forget, our work session is not on Tuesday next week, it's on Wednesday. Greg, got
Yes.
that?
Next Wednesday.
Got it, it's on my calendar.
And for the public, the offices here are closed. County recognizes the federal holiday of Veterans Day next Tuesday, November 11th. So we will next be meeting on Wednesday, November 12th.
And there's a celebration in the park is it 11 or 12? Do you know?
Kelly's got the
Let's
Veterans Day
see, it
schedule.
just came through. And it does not have a time on it. Oh, as far as I can see. 11 a.m. sharp.
And Kelly, just to be clear, you kind of want a repeating and while I'm,
Yeah.
okay, got it. We'll work with
And
Ryan
we can
on
just
that.
notice it under that title probably
Yep.
until we need to change it.
Okay.
Okay, any other future agenda items?
I've got one.
Yeah.
We had a miscue on the Cozen Legislative Mini Retreat, and I will own that miscue, I believe. And yeah, we're looking at November 13th or 14th, but that doesn't work for the full board. They did shoot back that they could come in they could come in for a mini retreat between December 10th and 12th, if that works for the board, or the week of December 15th is currently wide open for them. And what we thought we would do is some pre-work. Yeah, you should go. Sorry.
No, but leave that dog.
The dog's staying with us?
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
We got it.
And so if any of those times work, if you could let us know,
See
we'll
if we
get.
can four of us coalesce now around a date? 10th, we do not have a work or
I
a,
can't be there, but.
at the 10th, 11th, or 12th?
Of December?
Yes.
I have an ACRA event on the 11th and a doctor's appointment on the 11th.
Okay.
Happy winter school.
Yeah.
It's the winter's, I just got the ticket, I'll send it on to the board if anybody wants to go to
Does
that.
does the week of December 15th work or? No, okay, understood.
But I can do the 10th, Wednesday
I
the
can-
10th. Was
yeah.
that one of our dates?
Yeah.
December
Do
10th?
the
That's
10th?
correct.
Wow, that was a lot easier than I thought.
I might have APSHA later that, I can't remember what day APSHA meets in December, but that's later in the day anyway.
We can be flexible, I think, on timing, and
Okay.
I'll get to be
And
there for
I
that
can,
then.
I can also do the 12th, if we want to just grab 2 days so we can check with Francie.
Does the
Patty
12th
or
work
Jeffrey,
for?
could you do the 12th?
Yeah, because we moved the holiday party to, is the holiday party, does anybody know, is it on the Friday, the 5th?
The 5th.
Yeah.
It's on a Friday
5th.
night?
All right.
Is
All
it a
right.
Thursday or?
That's
I
a
think
Friday.
it's a Thursday.
I think we usually do it on Friday.
Is it Friday?
actually,
Okay.
yeah.
12th.
All right,
So
let's
it got
check.
moved
Can you
from the
also
12th
do-
to the
if-
5th.
Can we hold the
so
10th and the
available
12th just to have some
Yeah,
flexibility?
I think that
Okay.
was so we could get the facility. Yeah.
They double booked.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
All right, the 10th or the 12th works
Okay.
for three of us. All right. Great. Anything else?
That's all I have for future agendas.
You gonna join us at those? Your last?
Oh, heck
He's
yeah.
gonna be at the
Okay.
party.
Matter of fact,
Kate is
Are they gonna
singing.
take
I
us
was
out
just
to dinner?
talking Kate and the kids may be down here for the
She's singing at the
for the holiday party. Yeah.
I do have some future agenda.
Okay, please, Patty.
John, what is county vehicle barrier project? What the heck is that?
I believe that is part of our security, the bollards.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I was thinking county vehicles.
But it says county vehicle, so is it?
It's
Well,
probably
we may have to
county,
check
like
on
it's
that.
our project, but it's really
It's
the
like the
vehicle
vehicle
barrier
barrier
project.
out
There's
front of the
probably a
building?
comma missing in there.
Yeah.
Or just, it's a vehicle
Where are
barrier
you looking?
project. Okay, I'm like, what the heck is this?
Oh,
And
there.
the other one on the 16th, and it's a work session. We're gonna need more than 15 minutes for, you got that? For the board review and for the discretionary fund discussion. So both of those will take longer than 15 minutes, I believe.
Yeah.
This kind of looks like what we do for the school system. They're never in class, because they always have holidays. It's a lot of
The
holidays.
schools get off way more time than that. Other future agenda items.
Would now be when you wanted to discuss the airport retreat, since that is what sort of
The airport visits?
the airport visits?
Yes.
Oh,
now would be a
yes.
good
Sorry,
time for
Ryan.
that.
Yeah. Let me-
So, I think, thank you all for responding with your dates. We did discuss this morning with the design team and staff, and it does look like we had favorable responses for the 29th and 30th.
January?
That would be January, and then the 2nd and 3rd of February. And that would be, it's a Thursday, Friday for the 29th and 30th, and then it's a Monday, Tuesday. The first visit would be Bozeman, and then the second is Jackson. And part of the thinking today, and this doesn't have to be written in stone, but would be the first group, beside staff and the design team will be at both of these, but the first group of AAB members and or BoCC members would go to Bozeman, and then we would all go back to Denver. You all would come home. The next cohort would meet us in Denver, and we'd go on to Jackson for that visit. It's likely that the visit, Jackson is inflexible, so I think their date is the 3rd, and Bozeman is a little bit more flexible with a few different dates, but the idea with kind of piling those all on is that the design team can kind of come out and be there once. We would use that Saturday in Denver for a meeting. That is a staff level meeting to then eliminate one during the down the road. So we'd utilize we would utilize the time, but I think you all had initially thought when we spoke about this months ago that some of you had preferences on Bozeman versus Jackson. So I think that's what we would ideally get to today. And let's see, Greg and Francie, you had initially asked about the Jackson tour or volunteered for it. I did talk to Francie today. She's good with either Jackson or Bozeman. So if one of you would like to attend other than Greg or Francie. Okay.
I am free. The legislative conference for NACO is the end of February. But
Okay.
again, I have to question why the heck we're going. I know, but our discussion here was it's really of value if we're all either see it in person or they bring it to us in a visual, virtual kind of realm. Because if two people go, we can't have three, we can't have five without noticing it. So it's just frustrating for me to think we're going to look at these airports and just two people get to see it, and two of the same people get to see them all, and the rest of us are kind of hanging out there in the wind somewhere. And I just am concerned about the expenditure of money to fly us and keep us in, if we're going to combine it all and we're not going to come home and go back out again, depending upon who goes. I'm just not sure of the value. I think it's great to, I think Portland with being their signature airport, but, but for those of us who didn't get to go, where are we in the discussion, because we all can't go, and now, so I just am still concerned about that. But that being said, if you're going to continue on this path, I can go either time or both if there's a gap and somebody doesn't want to go.
And I would just respond briefly that I think the value is with these two airports in particular, in context with them being in the mountains, so geographically it's similar. They're going to have similar weather for those winter operations, which will be important to see. And then some of, like the Jackson, they are pushing the envelope with being more sustainable with their new design. They're pretty unique in what they've done with their lighting. They're really kind of on the bleeding edge with that, in particular being in a national park. And then, I think that the value of seeing how those communities responded to building an airport that was sort of in the context of that community and aligning with their own principles. The idea isn't to repeat what they did, but to kind of glean some ideas from it. As it relates to you all kind of going out separately, you're right, you're not all putting your eyeballs on the same airport, but I think if we can diversify the list, you each get an opportunity to kind of see different airports. And I think when you put your nose under the tent, so to speak, of an airport, you learn a lot. There's a lot of technical pieces that the common traveler has no idea about, and I can speak from experience, only having been on this job for a handful of months now, that I've learned a lot from that first visit to Portland. So it's certainly not a requirement, but I think there is an opportunity to get some from it, and then hopefully later on when it comes down to deciding on a design, that you all have a bit of experience to bring, and something from these visits that is beneficial. So.
The Bozeman Airport is currently the terminal is 300,000 square feet. It's being redeveloped to 500,000 square feet. They have 3 runways. It's kind of out of our realm, I think. And I do believe boots on the ground and putting your nose in it and seeing what's going on behind the scenes is important. But I think it's important for all of us to see that and all of us to render an opinion, and that's not happening. So I think virtually, in today's world, we could probably benefit from that just coming to us rather than us going to them. Then we could all see it and be part of the discussion.
Did you have any input?
Having been to Portland, I think Brian's right. The lessons out of the visit, it encompassed obviously PAE, ZGF, and PDX. So,
can you speak in English? The
our
Portland Airport,
our
ZGF.
architect and our engineer.
Okay.
And so the coupling of those three, I think as a commissioner, you
have a unique understanding of the human experience that you don't have if you didn't visit.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that's not happening.
So the short answer is I'm happy to go to one or both or none in order to stay at a quota of 2 staffers. So flexible on either one and would enjoy a visit to either one. So, and I think to Patty's question, I think when you look at design and space, scale definitely comes up. Like when we were in Portland, the scale's, for lack of a better word, insane. But there's elements of the circulation or the TSA that are programmatic elements that are going to be common amongst the airports. And you'll walk away going, wow, they nailed the biophilic design through the TSA line, but theirs is 150 feet long. And so how do we capture that same moment in our design in our airport that calms the traveler?
And I think that's great. You got to visit that and see that. But it wasn't great for those of us who didn't get to see it. We don't know. We don't have that concept. We didn't get that experience. And we're not going to unless it's brought to us virtually or whatever and shown to all of us sitting at the table so we can, and I know there's ways in which to do that. But if the board decides it's worth the time and energy and expense of visiting these airports, 2 of us here and 2 of us there or whatever, then I won't stand in the way of that. I just think it would be better for all of us to have that, garner that knowledge.
And we can definitely bring back a presentation, and I think it can be a yes and, where a few of you are able to go and then bring back a detailed presentation on what we saw, how it might be germane to what we see, and how it might be germane to how it would influence our design or not. But I think we can do that.
Well, if we can do that, I don't think we need to do both, but that's my position. I'll stop.
Okay,
thank you.
But I could still go on.
I'm going to let Patty have the floor and give her, and try to figure out ways that are going to be productive.
I've heard it before twice.
I know, we're still going to do it. Don't,
So keep
Greg,
going,
please,
keep talking.
don't
Honestly,
argue with me. It's my
You're trying
position.
to talk us all out of something we've.
No, I'm
we
trying to
decided
find a
do.
better solution than spending dollars doing something that I don't think is going to get us to
Right.
where we need to be at the end of the day.
I've heard you. I've
Okay,
heard
then
you
I will
again
not
and
say
again and
another
again
word.
and again.
So
Okay.
please, do not interrupt me when I have the floor, please, Greg.
I rarely ever do.
Okay.
Thank you. I apologize to everyone. I'm
So,
perhaps a little frustrated today
Well-
because I'd like to move this forward and make the plan. That's
well,
all.
it is moving forward, but I do want to honor Patty's dissenting position and figure out if there are ways that meaningful information can come back. So I think it's clear that there's board majority to send people on these visits and to send staff on these visits. There's not, most of the board is agreeing with that. We're hearing her input on how it can come back in a way that brings value to all of those who aren't going to go. Because I'm not going to go, and I can't go. And, I'm sure there will be some value. There's probably other value in other airports that we're not going to visit as well, and I'm going to let that go. And,
It's your choice.
take the expert proposal that's been brought to us. So it's, I think it's okay to disagree and try to figure out where we can find some alignment here. And if that is in specific ways that those of us who don't go would like to see information back, I think that's a reasonable request for the amount of money and resources we're spending on the trip.
I'll agree with that.
And so I think that leaves, Patty, I hope you do go. Like I said, it's
Now I'm
really,
pretty much
really,
probably not going to go.
really tough for me to go, and just my life logistics. And then if you all can please provide your dates to Ryan, so that they can nail down who's going to be at which places.
So
that would
If
be
I may,
great.
it might just help us. Sorry to interrupt if
please.
I did. So on that first one, initially we had a Jackson visit, and Greg and Francie were slated for that one, and I think Bozeman was maybe open-ended.
Supposed to be myself and somebody, but
thought
it
Francie.
got changed and it got canceled and but
So,
sorry.
just as an idea, I'll just throw this out there. If we stuck with Greg and Francie to the Jackson one, and then if we went with Jeffrey and you, Patty, to the Bozeman one.
I'm not sure I want to go see a 500,000 square foot.
Okay,
terminal,
but what if we said,
just leave it open for now? And date, because Francie said she'd go to all of them, so if I
Right.
decide not to go, I'm sure Francie will go to all of them, because she seems to be traveling a lot these days.
what if we just said to Jackson if that one's more right-sized, and would you get more benefit out of it?
No, I'm okay. Because I know Jeffrey really wanted to see Jackson too, so, yeah.
Okay.
We have to
We have
do,
one more slot to
I'll bring
figure
you-
out.
I'll
And
bring
if
you-
only one goes, that's okay too.
I'll bring you
That
back a
would be okay.
surprise from the gift shop.
I can do both. I'd go. If
Yeah.
there's a spot, I'll do it.
Sorry, we haven't resolved
and are you
this.
okay with,
I'm okay with one, both, none. And I've got housing in Denver, so I would go down, fly, hang in Denver and fly, so.
okay,
All
It
right.
worked for me too.
I'll circle back with Francie of how passionately she feels about either
Okay.
of those.
great,
Um,
thank you.
Are we
Yes.
missing board meetings that
Yes.
Monday, that Tuesday?
Is there other
we have a
future
quorum?
agenda items?
On the,
Okay.
I am out on the 12th, sorry.
Yes.
It's an agenda item, just so people are
All right.
clear. If there's an exec that day, I'm not here.
Okay.
And Francie's out on the 12th. We gotta make sure we have a quorum. She's having her hand surgery in the morning.
Right. I know.
She's
She
gonna
said she might
try
be
and
able
be
to
back, but
come.
it's still.
And are you able to just call in? Because I thought your meeting started later.
I'm happy to call in on Wednesday morning.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Great. All right. And you're here on the 12th? We have a quorum?
December 12th?
No, November 12th.
I'll be here November 12th.
Wonderful. Okay, let's move on to the Pickens County holiday schedule, and I'm going to try and wrap us up by 5.
I do have one open discussion.
Yes, we have one to talk about as a board, too.
Cool.
The no additional holidays from 2025 to 2026.
These are the same holidays from 2025 to 2026. We generally observe the holidays that are observed by the state, and that list, to earlier comments, has grown over the years. And so these are the holidays that the state recognizes, and we generally, through, I believe, our personnel manual and policies, had designated that in a previous approval from the board. So
Okay.
this is more a list of those holidays. Now, I do believe that the board can change that holiday list. We'd probably need to bring back an amendment to our personnel manual, so.
Questions? All right, I'm curious how many, if there's a critical mass of employees that like work on one of these holidays and then carry over. Like Cesar Chavez Day really stands out to me as one that you might work and then take that holiday a different day.
And it's certainly something we could try and pull reports on. I don't have that
Yeah, and it'd be tricky to know
available.
for
Yeah.
exempt employees, right? Okay, any questions? We don't have any formal action on that? Okay. All right, board open discussion. Charlotte has joined us, I hope, to discuss the AAB alternate appointment. Is it alternate or second alternate?
second alternate.
Second alternate. Okay, hi Charlotte, nice to see you.
Hello, commissioners.
Your hair looks really cute.
We have a decision to make on the Airport Advisory Board, the alternate number 2 position. There were 4 applicants: Christy Ferrer, Lara Whitley, Jack Cohen, and Allison Richmond. And hopefully you all had a chance to review those links that I sent you if you needed some refreshing there. So she will, or whoever you choose will assume the term left vacant by Ann Mullins, which expires next April 2026.
Because Anne moved up.
Correct.
Yeah,
Jim
okay.
White moved up, Ann moved up.
Right. Okay. Thank you for reminding me of that. All right. Input. Jeffrey?
You could go ahead.
So I would move forward with either Mr. Cohen or Laura Whitley. I put forward Laura Whitley's name specifically, one for her community engagement that I've personally witnessed over the last decade, and two, she's a former core staffer. So I'd also recognize her for her core values in terms of what she can bring to the board in the discussion vis-a-vis sort of the most sustainable airport in the world. So thank you.
So you're saying core as in the Community Office for Resource Efficiency.
And her core values.
And her core squared values.
Thank
I
you,
support
Patty.
Laura Whitney.
Thank you.
I think we had great candidates. I think Christy was very entertaining. I'm not sure how much time she spends here. Jack, we have him on the FAB. He's very astute when it comes to dollars and cents. But I think with Laura and Allison, is it Richmond? She had a great interview. She has a great personality, but I think Laura's community involvement would be a big benefit to the AAB.
Greg?
I agree with Patty. I think Laura would be great. I think Jack would be great, but we've got financial guys. As she said, he's on the financial advisory board already. I think we were solid with financial folk on the AAB, and she would lend, as Jeffrey says, community perspective that isn't on that board right now, and I think is essential.
Okay. I think that's great.
And I still want
will-
to keep Jack on the line.
I will note, Francie had said to me she had supported Jack as her preference. So
She's not here to argue her case.
yes, yes. And I think we're paying money for outside advisors to help sort out a bunch of this financial stuff as well, related to bonding and all of that. So
You guys have financial brain.
I hope we're well covered. Great, thanks, Charlotte. I think that's our choice.
Thank you, Charlotte. Good to see you.
Okay, question,
and
go ahead.
sorry, I'm having a problem hearing you
Oh,
also.
sorry.
The choice?
Was Laura Whitley.
Okay, I will prepare a resolution, and that will be on November 19th's agenda.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, good to see you all.
Okay, open discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to give the board an update. The Crystal Caucus had requested an increase in county support, which has been at $600, gosh, since I've been here, and probably well before. And so as we were doing research, we actually found a resolution from 1998 increasing that support to $1,500, which we've never we've never done. And so we are, just so you know, honoring that existing resolution based on that request and making the roughly $7,000 or $8,000 adjustment to the 2026 budget. And then if the board wishes to make any additional changes, we can revisit that 1998 resolution, which was a surprise to all of us. And so we just wanted to let the board know in case you hear about that.
Patty.
Yeah, so there's no back pay. And I was not yet on the board that year. I got elected in 98, did not take office till 99.
Otherwise, you would have remembered.
I would
Yeah,
have remembered
that's true.
it. Thank you,
And-
Kelly. I probably would have.
There is language up to.
I think I actually do remember us increasing it.
So we felt like there was some discretion for it to be anywhere.
Thank you.
up
That was
to.
an easy solution. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so. And that's all I have.
Jeffrey.
Two items. One can be really quick. Tomorrow is a CCI meeting. It is virtual. And if anyone is interested, Eleni is presenting. She is the legislative director in the governor's office, followed by the BHA, which is Erica Gannett. She's the legislative affairs, followed by CBMS, the Colorado Benefit Management System, followed by Colorado Department of Ag, and then at the end there's a DOLA meeting. So it's 3 hours of pretty substantive stuff. And if you're not going to CCAT or CCI in the next couple of weeks, this might be a really good update as far as what's going on with the state. It then in the afternoon goes to DNR and then back to CCI, and Prop 123 baseline calcs. So it's a really good agenda for CCI. It's all virtual, and you could spend 6 hours of your Friday online with some of your colleagues. So, and if you don't want to go, then I would say go to the budget director, which again is out of the office of the governor, and that may give some insight in terms of 2026 legislative directives. So that's the CCI update real quick. And then there's an email that I tried to respond to a couple of times in our inbox, and it's regarding housing project in Old Snowmass / Woody Creek. My response to Lisa DeLosa was largely look for funding elsewhere, and that there's opportunities in grants that we'd be happy to set her up with. Either I didn't offer our grants writer, but certainly Northwest COG. I go through that list every time that it's emailed out, and I've been sending her what might be applicable because it's water, waste, roof, other maintenance stuff that she would be eligible for as a rural multifamily. But I did not see a response from staff with regards to potentially whether or not it would be a fit for the housing fund.
So
and I didn't
have
want
a
to
little
answer.
bit of an update. Yeah, I have a little bit of an update. So this came kind of via the APSHA board, and we have heard similar requests. I think what they want to do is have us approve their category change so that they can recoup the investments in the maintenance that they need to do to their foundation when they sell the property. But because in an approval that tracks back to Pitkin County, it's locked in at a maximum sales price. They want us to authorize a higher sales price. So we're going to talk about it in exec on Tuesday. So sorry that didn't make it further. I was just like, I don't know why this is coming to the county. Does this have a prior approval? Ashley and Rye have been researching it, and they're going to bring it to us.
Okay. It looks like it's going back about a year in some of these conversations. So again, my response to Lisa a year ago was there's grants out there. I didn't see. I mean, really the question I thought for this board wasn't a category change, was are they eligible for funding through the housing tax?
Our new housing
So,
tax, I believe so.
and I know Ashley had responded previously also, and I do believe that, it's our intent to develop some programming along these lines. I don't know if it would apply directly to this, but it is just not something we're prepared to implement just yet.
It was a good response, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And appreciate it. Have a parallel conversation going on, but we'll bring them together on Tuesday.
Is there an APSHA nexus? I'm sorry.
Yes, because the categories are all managed through APSHA, but the category definitions are usually tied back to some land use approval at the city or county. And so for that approval to be changed, it has to come to that originating body. And so that's why it went to APSHA first. They came to the APSHA board. The APSHA board said, we can't make this change. You have to figure out where your approvals came from. And that's why it's circulating through us and the county attorney's office, because we own that initial category assignment. And this is pretty common. We get these a fair amount.
So their unit is deed restricted where she is?
Yeah. So we'll learn more. Thank you. Appreciate that. And is there other open discussion?
I'm good.
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. All right, me too. All right, we will adjourn our work session today and see you all next Wednesday for
Well
work
done.
session.
On time. On budget.
Or Veterans Day on Tuesday.